Check, check, check.
Oh, okay. For what? Oh, okay, well.
Check, check, check. Oh, shoot. I don't think I have.
We're not close.
Hello. All right.
Good, yeah, you're good. You can put it right on there, she'll get it. Make sure there's a set. I didn't want to push the button. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. I didn't want to push that down and mess up the display or anything.
Oh, do you want to test it out, though?
Well, I want to just be ready to show this, but will it end up overriding that, or what the public sees?
What
or?
happens, what we do is we switch to the, when they do the presentation,
Okay,
we
so we
switch
just
to
wait.
this guy.
I'm
Yeah.
ready, but we'll just wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They, I have to read something for the closed captioners, because we have a live closed captioner who's standing by, who expects us to start the meetings on time.
Wouldn't that be nice? It's funny, because I was saying, you know, the last maybe 4 board meetings, they started so late, and I said, it's not us, it's the public.
Right,
People are expecting to log on, turn on, and see it,
right.
and we're really kind of disrespecting their time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I think they should start closed session earlier, because they have a lot of items.
I know. Well,
Yeah,
we're
but
all
whatever.
just. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Want
we
me to-
can
want me
test
to-
this out too if you want. Because what happens is we turn on.
Yeah, I just didn't want to mess up what the public sees. Hi, how are you? Great. Better as we get closer to ending this thing.
Oh, right, and then.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't even mess
Okay.
with it. I
All
don't
right,
want
all
to,
right.
mess with it. I'm ready. That's all that matters.
Tonight's meeting of the Peralta College's Board of Trustees will begin shortly. The trustees are currently in closed session. The meeting will be shown in its entirety on Peralta TV, KGPC 96.9 FM radio, and streamed live on the Peralta TV YouTube channel. Stay tuned. Tonight's meeting of the Peralta College's Board of Trustees meeting will begin shortly.
Yes, we are gonna. So if I can get my trustees, good evening. Such a buzz in the room, such a buzz. Let's get our trustees up, Madam Clerk. Do we have a quorum?
Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you for that. We're calling this meeting to order, and we will start with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Weinstein. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Madam President, do you have a readout from closed session?
At tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointment of the following public employee contracts, which is subject to contractual agreement by the Chancellor. Recommendation to extend Spencer Moore as the Interim Executive Director of Public Information, Communication and Media, District Office until June 30th, 2019, at $103,977 annually. 5 ayes, 1 no, Ewan, 1 abstention, Weinstein. Recommendation to appoint Ingrid Vargas as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Planning and Institutional Research District Office, effective April 10th, 2019 through April 9th, 2021, at $156,307 annually. 5 ayes, 0 noes, 1 abstention, Ewan, 1 absent, Brown. If these individuals are present, please stand so that we can welcome you into your new position. Madam President, that concludes the closed session readout tonight.
Thank you for that. And just as a point of order, we will pause right now so that we could move into our study session. And for our first study session 2.1, we are going to review the Peralta Community College District 5-year Integrated Financial Plan. And our presenter is VC Brown.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, colleagues, and community. I'm happy to be here tonight to present to everyone the first draft of the 5-year Integrated Financial Plan. And as soon as it's projected up there on the screen, we can, there it goes. Let me move the lights down. So this presentation will be interactive. I just have a few slides that I'll give an introduction to remind us how we got to where we're at. And then there are slides that have a summary of each chapter. And after I just walk very briefly through that chapter, we'll stop for questions about that chapter. So as a reminder to the community specifically, on November 20th, 2018, a letter was sent from ACCJC to the presidents and the former chancellor requesting a 5-year integrated financial plan that was cited in 2016. Subsequently, the concerns expressed by ACCJC were several, including multi-year enrollment declines, Peralta's fiscal viability, the audits and corrective action plans to address current audits, our fund balance policy, enrollment management generally speaking, a student services infrastructure plan, OPEB or retirement liabilities, and Peralta's preparedness for the student-centered funding formula, as well as the high executive level turnover rate. So Peralta immediately began engaging in how we will address the plan and all of the serious concerns that ACCJC expressed to us. And we did this very wholeheartedly and very deliberately through the shared governance process. We formed work groups that had shared governance constituencies, a finance one to look deeply into the finance pieces of ACCJC's concerns, and an enrollment management management work group to look deeply into the enrollment management plans and student services infrastructure, et cetera. We scheduled joint PBC and PGC meetings. That's every 2 weeks, where the sole agenda item would be to look at drafts, structure, content of the 5-year integrated financial plan, so that every 2 weeks, that was the sole agenda item for 1.5 hours to give constituent groups, shared governance members, opportunity to see how the plan was developing and to give comment and suggestions to it. We also hired a faculty accreditation coordinator. Her name is Dr. May Chin, and she's here tonight. And I really want to point out the fact that this faculty has extensive experience with accreditation, as well as research, and proved to be the perfect selection for this. She worked very tirelessly on this plan, helping us coordinate documents, writing, conversations, everything, and so we really appreciate her efforts there. We also, the shared governance groups on PBC and PGC, we asked them to share it with their constituent groups so that we could get comments from their constituent groups at the colleges. As well, we had individual input from faculty, staff, and administration. Even as recently as during spring break, when faculty were on break, we had 3 sets of faculty who went through the draft plan meticulously and sent us comments. And so I really want to thank everyone who was involved in this. This was truly a shared governance effort, and every single comment that came, and I'm not exaggerating, every single comment that came was so on point, and we considered and we adopted literally every single comment. We still have some comments that have come in very recently, and as a result of this meeting tonight, the comments from the board and community, we'll look to see what we can do to address those comments. But this is a collaborative document. We also wanted to make sure that the plan was integrated, that it wasn't a district down plan, but that it was a colleges up plan. And so there are several areas where this is exhibited. We all collectively, the colleges and the district, updated and integrated the existing college and district enrollment management plans. This is the work of the work group that we had on enrollment management. We met every single week, and the colleges did amazing work to update their enrollment management plans, to have them align with the student-centered funding formula, and to put it through their entire shared governance system, which all 4 colleges did. Then those numbers and that information drove into the district enrollment management plan, which we have now finalized, and we are taking through the shared governance process. We also have an integrated 5-year financial plan in the sense that the Student Services Infrastructure Plan, which is what ACCJC asked us to develop, was also developed in a similar manner, that the colleges, administration, faculty, and staff helped give input into the Student Services Infrastructure Plan and created this large document of a matrix showing all the areas where there's overlaps with the student-centered funding formula, the vision for success, and they have targeted data to reach. We also utilized a multi-year student-centered funding formula template where each college filled in every single element of the student-centered funding formula, broken down into its smallest parts, and they looked with their campuses at what they believe they can do to grow the specific areas. What is it that we can do to grow the SPX? What is it that we can do to grow the 9 units of CE, the ADTs? And they used those conversations at their colleges to fill in this template so that they could give a multi-year projection at where it is they believe they can grow the most strongly. And we gathered those from all 4 colleges and put it into the district-wide then look at where we think we can go with the student-centered funding formula in a multi-year manner. And that was used in an integrated fashion to drive the budget reduction plan that we'll most likely talk about tonight. Same thing is true with the Guided Pathways Alignment. As the community and the board are aware, the colleges have been engaged in Guided Pathways conversations. They've submitted plans, again, from the colleges, and that work then drove into the 5-year integrated financial plan in several areas and manners. So the first section of the 5-year integrated financial plan is the executive summary. You'll note that the document is a very thorough document that reaches 66 or so pages. So the executive summary will give the community a chance to look at the highlight bullet points and key essential pieces with links inside them so that they can understand exactly what actions Peralta is taking to address the financial concerns of ACCJC. In the executive summary, a 3-pronged approach is described, and I'll allow Dr. Nikki Harrington to go through this in detail when she comes to the podium. But this is critical in looking at the way the financial plan and CBT and FITMAC work together to assist the growth and remedies of Peralta Community College District. Also in the executive summary, we state that all of the concerns from ACCJC have been addressed in the plan to assure the community that we've looked at every single item very deeply. And then we outlined the 3 aims of the 5-year integrated financial plan, which are 1, to increase revenue, and of course the larger document goes into detail about that and connects to the enrollment management plans. 2, to reduce operational expenditures. Again, the larger plan goes into detail about how we intend to do that. And 3, applying sound financial management and administration. And again, the larger document goes into detail. So I'll stop here because I said that our format would be more conversational, so that if anyone has questions about the executive summary, that they can do so.
Thank you for that. We'll open up for questions on the executive summary portion of this study session. Trustee Brown.
I have a question with regard to the external review, and part of what I'm concerned about is that we oftentimes don't really get the feedback from our community that we're supposed to be serving. We're very much insular, and I'm concerned about comparing our census data, our residents that are actually in our service area, to the students that we have enrolled and to the progress that our students are making, because what I want to make sure is that we have a level of accountability that doesn't allow us to leave out anyone in our service area because their needs may be greater, and focus on those that may need less. And I think there needs to be a way to compare census to and having the external evaluation or the external scan, environmental scan, enrollment numbers, and compare it to the outcomes as well. And I would like to hear how we would achieve that so that we don't end up having a repeat of like the Massachusetts Miracle or some of those things we've read about in education, where the students that are most in need get left behind, especially given that we have our funding tracking the students, and there is a desire to have in the vision for success, the reduction of the achievement gaps within 10 years.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the comment, and you're absolutely right about the importance of external environmental scanning in addition to internal environmental scanning. And one of the roles of the CBT group will be to complete or update our environmental scans, both internal and external, in terms of labor market, the kinds of information you get from census data, et cetera. We want to make sure in the planning going forward, and particularly in enrollment management, because that's right where you are right now in enrollment management, your comment. We want to make sure that we are planning for the population and demographics that make up our service area, and we're going to be relying on CBT to provide that data.
The last question I had was regarding the campus climate. We had talked about the need, or I think it had been raised before, the need to have a survey to get the students' feedback, and it's mentioned in this five-year financial plan that there would be a survey, but the survey needs to be not just the academic survey. It's mentioned in terms of an academic survey, and I wanted to make sure that we'd have a campus climate survey. And I see our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs nodding his head because he hears the students' concerns as well. And I want to make sure that we are not just believing ourselves to be a certain way, but that we check and see if others see us to be as open and as comfortable or as inviting as we say we are, because that makes a difference in terms of student retention and student completion and even the enrollment.
Absolutely, and we have asked CBT to add to their environmental external scanning and data collection also questions around campus climate. And we did get some examples, thank you, regarding that. So you can expect to see some data around campus climate coming forward from their report.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so just for clarity, I think we're going to just reiterate kind of the process that we're going through here. So as a study session, Siri VC Brown will be pausing after each section to allow for a level of engagement, Q&A, comments, suggestions, so that we can make this more interactive, and not just from the trustees, also from our 4 college presidents, and anyone else who would like to ask any clarifying questions or suggestions. So remember, study session, interactive process, everyone. Thank you. Any other questions before VC Brown moves on? Thank you.
So a snapshot inside the executive summary is this three-pronged approach, and this is an image of it, and there's also a handout in the packets for people. And again, Nikki Harrington will speak about this in detail. The introduction of the 5-year integrated financial plan takes a look at Peralta and its service areas, its demographics, data on Pell Grant, Cal Promise, and AB 540 students, the declining enrollment that we're experiencing within the context of historically low unemployment, comparisons of PCCD's enrollment declines to other districts, and some of the proactive enrollment trends in spite of the overall decline, as well as the district participatory governance committees. So if there's questions or comments or input around the introduction, we can do that now.
Questions, comments? Yeah, Trustee Reese.
I have a few comments, but I think I'll stay with my particular question for, sure. I have a few questions, actually I have many questions, but I think I'll stay with the first question that I have for the introduction. One of the things that, first of all, this is very comprehensive. This is very comprehensive. So it was very interesting to read, and it certainly is a great departure from the few drafts prior to. I think one of the things that's a little concerning to me, though, is that many of the items and many of the directions that this is using as a framework are articulated in the present tense, as if we are doing many of these different things all the time. And so I think part of it for me is I would love for us to continue to be fully working towards being an evidence-based culture district. Mm-hmm. And there were a few things here where the evidence was certainly attached, mm-hmm. and there were a few other areas where it clearly was not the case. But the question that I have here is for the CDCP. So you talk about the special admit and you talk about the CDCP non-credit. And one of the questions that kept coming up for me is, there is a way to continually put forth the effort, but I'd also like to see what the outcome is. And so you talk about the CDCP non-credit here growing from 0 to 11 certificates. And we're at this particular point where CDCP non-credit is still at an 11 for the district. And so I'd like to be able to start seeing, and maybe this is going to be one of those areas where we will begin seeing it, where we have the plan, but also a closing the loop framework, where this is how we're beginning, this is what we're going to do, these are the checkpoints at specific times, and then can we reassess that plan to see halfway through that it's working? Because I see a lot of input through this. I don't necessarily see the outcome yet, but I think what's really important for this district to get its hands around is ensuring that we're closing the loop and we're reassessing our practices on a timely basis. Was that a question? I think that was a comment.
I can respond. I think it's great comments. I appreciate the comments. In the non-credit plan, which is a link in the larger document, I'm not looking at it to see if it's actually in that chapter or not, but we have spent a year with a group of faculty, staff, and administrators in a non-credit working group where we took the foundation that had been built by WDCE and we talked about everything, marketing and training, how to engage more faculty, how to systematize our training materials. We created all kinds of things along the way with that. And in the plan, we're really laying out what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about, except it doesn't have the timelines and milestones. So we can certainly go back and add that to it because it's very relevant. But I do feel very confident about the direction we're moving in terms of non-credit generally and CDCP non-credit specifically, because the faculty are really engaging in it and they understand it and they're bringing forth just all this amazing curriculum. In fall alone, we had 18 new certificates brought to CIPD, 18 or 19. And it's showing that the efforts of the colleges, the college administration, the faculty leadership is really working in that people understand it. And we're seeing a very natural growth in CDCP non-credit in that we have community centers. You know, we have 3 now in Fruitvale that we're servicing. We have a faculty who's going to Chinatown to work on a Chinese language CDCP non-credit. And then on campus, we have this growth that's especially being fueled by AB 705. And so along the way in the conversations, we looked at other districts and how they do non-credit and how some have large schools and it's separate, but we didn't want to take a model. We wanted to see what's naturally growing out of Peralta and then capture that and so we definitely will do what you're saying because I think that's relevant, and then we also have to continue working on the A&R pieces of non-credit as we get ready for this beautiful explosion that's about to happen with all these new certificates.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah. Trustee Brown.
I had one more question, really, that goes to the some of these community centers and the sort of the environmental scan. I guess it's community responsiveness to the community, and I'm wondering if in those committees, because it's primarily a issue that would be worked on through enrollment and through the academic senate, but the equivalencies for former service members, because we do have a lot of service members that are in our area, and that's a big issue, being able to get the equivalencies so that you can get the certificates and not spend as much time because you've already been doing a lot of on-the-job training. And that's something that the statewide, there's a little bit of a lag on. Frankly, it seems as though there's almost a leg up that some of the for-profits are getting that we're not getting, which is a shame because we're a better program. We have better programs and better costs. But I was wondering if that was something that was being evaluated, because that would make a huge difference, I think, in the attractiveness of our programs if we were able to sort that out so that we could offer the equivalencies to our former service members. And I see our College of Alameda president probably has an answer to that. Through the chancellor, I'm going to behave myself.
This is a study session, so we're
No behaving us?
Wow. All right. So I'll try to, I'll be brief. I can just do one example of that. That's a great emergent area for us. And I know we've just recently been in contact with the Coast Guard, since they are one of the military service areas, about doing that exact thing, working with them to try to get their prior or their experience credited for us, for we can then offer them enhanced pathways to bring that in board, because it is an area where I think the for-profits have sort of gone ahead, and we definitely think that's the space we need to be in, because that's who we serve. So yeah, I know at COA at least we've already been, we just had a meeting about 2 weeks ago with Base Alameda.
Any of the other college presidents like to?
I just wanted to say at BCC, since we've been having a lot of momentum with our adult education work with the pathways there, that the discussions for credit for prior learning, like experiences learning, that the faculty are also in conversation about that as well.
Laney College just got awarded the currently and formerly incarcerated students reentry program grant. But one of the outcomes grant things that we wrote in that was actually to map jobs that inmates were having in while being incarcerated, because we feel like they should get prior learning credit. So it hasn't been done in the state, and so that's actually one of the items that we want to work on as part of that effort, is really looking at how we can do that as well to give credit for when they come in, so to create an even stronger pathway from some of the employment opportunities they have.
Yeah, I think that one of the values that we hold well and exercise well is access and equity. It's not like we're perfect on that, but that's what I hear is the undercurrent of your question is about equity. And a good example of that is that now that the state is paying the highest rate for dual enrollment students, SPX students generally, but dual enrollment, it's a good thing for us. It's become a win financially, right? It added $6 million into the budget. But I actually am prouder for us to be able to say that we started doing this 3 years ago because of our relationships with our partners, and because we believe in access and equity, and we could see immediately, what this would do for our students in our community and what it would do to our enrollment as well. And so now some districts and colleges are scrambling to get involved in it, and we already have this good, solid foundation. Same with the formerly incarcerated, and now the currently incarcerated. So, but as we move forward with everything, we have to challenge ourselves to look at what equity really means, in terms of how we're spreading our CDCP non-credit and what communities we're going to and all of that. We have to always keep a check on ourselves.
Thank you.
That's great. Trustee Weinstein?
Yeah, hi, thank you. This is very fascinating material and heady material. I was curious about the online education, which seems to be, I think, growing rapidly, and the issue that to try to increase the success of the students who are online to at least be equal to students who are in classes. And I'm curious, how are you beginning to think about that? And is there an analysis that's going on to look at these issues?
I'm really glad that you asked that question, because the distance education plan was really faculty-driven and district-wide driven, and they used a lot of data to analyze equity as well as student success. They actually have won multiple awards for an equity distance education, what do they call it? It's rubric, thank you. And they're working very closely with VC CIFRA about this. What we're really clear that we're committed to is is a couple of things. We see that distance ed is growing, and it's growing by demand. But at the same time, we don't want to grow it exponentially. One, because we value what happens face-to-face, but also because we don't want to grow it just to get FTEs if the student success is not at least matching the face-to-face success. So the whole emphasis between this semester all through next year is on this student success piece. What tools can we utilize to ensure that students perform better inside the distance education courses? And then once we're able to master that, then we'll be looking at offering to the community fully online certificates and degrees, again, based on demand. What the RP Group Environmental Scan said to us 2 years ago was that we're missing a whole community of people who are professionals that want to move up and they can't come face-to-face. And so instead of having our online classes offered sort of haphazardly, that we could offer to the community, you can get this and you can get that fully online to meet your life schedule. But I would defer to VC Sifra, who has been talking with the DE committee about this a lot.
Good evening. One of the activities that's been, I think, worked on diligently by the committee, by the chair and myself, is the assessment of what do our students receive as services, because that ties into their success. So we've done a campus environmental scan of what's available and to what degree do we have access online to services. We know that some of our services are via email, via phone. A lot of our forms are online, but those are transactional. We've looked at how do we increase our counseling's capability to actually provide real virtual counseling service, not the, hey, call me at this time when I'm at work, but, you know, how do we bridge those types of services? So across the board, we've been looking at what the gaps are and then prioritizing what the requests will be, because some of these services, when we expand or develop them, will come with resource requests and consideration for development.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and continue.
So Chapter 2 discusses the budget development process and calendar, as well as the budget allocation model, which we refer to as BAM, and looks at revenue sources and other factors that impact BAM. This chapter, well, this topic, the topic of the BAM, is always a hot and heated topic, and there have been multiple discussions about the BAM, how to shift the BAM to the student-centered funding formula, and we have decided to take our time around figuring that piece out, but that's what this chapter is about. If there's questions or comments about the BAM,
now's a good time to ask, yes. And if you had any follow-up questions, it's good too.
Thank you very much for the report, and I want to thank everybody who put time into writing this thing. It's obviously taken a lot of work and effort, and it had to be done quickly, much faster than when anybody could really responsibly say, yeah, we could do a great job in this amount of time. So what you've done with the time, thank you very much. I've got a question about BAM that I'm going to come to, but I want to just try to back up to see if I can understand better the scope of the enterprise. Even before we changed the funding formula, we were in trouble. We didn't know that the budget, you know, that the state funding model was going to be changed. It was changed. It gave us a little bit of relief, but that was just luck. That was dumb luck on our part. And prior to that, we were headed into some problems. We are out of balance, right? Am I correct there?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand is when we try to analyze what the essence of the problem, it's that we've got revenue that's not matching expenditures. On the revenue side, is the main problem, the principal problem, that we just weren't hitting our enrollment targets? Had we hit our enrollment targets, we would have balanced our budget. Or was there some other problem on the revenue side other than that we missed our enrollment targets?
Okay, so we're going to toss a coin and see who wins, and then one of us is going to answer this question. That's a very good question, and it really underlines and underscores a fundamental problem, if you will, that the college district has had for a long time. And that is simply that there's a culture here of spending more than you're taking in. If the revenue is $10 and you're spending 20, it doesn't matter whether it was 10 or a million, but that is a cultural issue here. Spending more than you're taking in. The FTES targets may have shifted or changed. Not meeting the targets, you're absolutely right, does not help. But once you meet the targets, you can't keep spending more than the targets are affording you in revenue. So that's the shift that needs to happen.
So part of what I'm trying to understand is we come up with a plan. It seems to me that the analysis of the problem is critical to understanding whether the plan is going to work. And so we've got a revenue problem. Part of that is FTES. Part of it might be something else that I don't quite understand, and I can't quite tell from the document what our analysis is. Part of it then is on the expenditure side. Now, we also have a parcel tax, which brings in a lot of money, and so one would have imagined that had we, even if we hadn't hit our enrollment targets, well, then we've got this $8 million of $7.5 million of parcel tax. We should be able to balance our books. So maybe we've got a problem on the revenue side, but then we've got a problem on the expenditure side, and that's where I'm also trying to understand where are we spending money that we shouldn't be spending. There's some discussion of the OPEB, and I can't quite tell what that is. It was really dense, and frankly, I was dealing with a migraine and was like trying to, and maybe that was giving me the migraine. I don't know. You probably had that problem for the last several months too. But on the expenditure side, is it clear where we were wasting money?
Yes.
And because that's where I'd like us to understand, and that gets me to the BAM question. Okay, so the constant complaint that I heard prior to having the BAM was inequitable. One college, it seems to just be a random amount of money that got rolled over. There's no relationship to what they're actually doing. This isn't fair. So we come up with this BAM. We take, 5 or 6 years to begin implementing the BAM, and then it begins to shift, but nowhere in there, it strikes me, and I might be wrong, but it seemed to me that the constant complaint that I heard was, well, where is the district in the BAM?
Yeah.
The district office comes up with this figure, they give this to the colleges, but nobody then holds the district accountable and says, well, wait a second, how do you even rationalize taking that percentage of that? And so I guess here's my question on the BAM. I didn't see in this report a definitive statement that said, and part of our plan will be to rationalize district spending the same way that we rationalize college spending and subjecting the district's expenses to the exact same formula or some version of that formula where it's all transparent, and through a shared governance process, those shared governance bodies say, yes, we agree with this. Is that in here, or did I miss it? Or it's not in here? That is, the agreement that the district budget will come under some kind of shared governance scrutiny that is comparable to the BAM.
I think it should be in here, and I keep looking at my co-chair from Participatory Governance Council, because this is an ongoing conversation between the Planning and Budget Council and the Participatory Governance Council and the acting chancellor around the issue of the budget allocation model. It is a weakness. You've spotted it. You've articulated it very well. It is a fundamental weakness of the current model. And what we've talked about now allowed Dr. Moore to speak for himself, but our intent and our plan is to revise the model. We didn't believe, given the ACCJC timeline of May 1st, that we'd be able to undertake that kind of monumental process, but that we certainly could plan to do that in early fall. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, if I can. Well, one, in terms of on the revenue side and on the expense side, if you recall, in terms of in our expense side, what's happened in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years with the with all of the money that we've had to take out and pay for things or to write off things, right? So you take that into account and how much the revenue, the reserve has gone down. Then when you then start to look at it, I think that part of it has been the fact that the district has not been part of BAM. BAM was set up originally to look at the 4 colleges and to how do we allocate to the 4 colleges. And a couple of years ago, the discussion started to come up fairly strongly that we can't just look at 4 colleges and how do we expend money on 4 colleges. We have to look at the district, and that there are 5 areas where the money is allocated, the revenue is allocated to. And so that's when we began the discussion. So there's been a lot of discussion. What you see in this BAM that we currently have is a major change in that last year we all agreed to have the district at least put into the BAM. Before, that's never been the case, right? Now everybody is looking at it and saying, "Oh, look how much the allocation for the district is," and then that then creates the circumstances with, well, what kind of services do the colleges need and ask for? And so that's why it's become a much more difficult discussion to have, and that's what we're having, because ultimately you have to get down to the core of this is in terms of the services. Are we or are we not a centralized or decentralized? Are we somewhere in the middle? Have we all agreed to what services the district should provide or shouldn't provide? All of those kinds of questions are going to go to the heart of this allocation model, because it really, really has us asking the questions, because whether it's the district or the colleges, we all want to have a model that works for all of us.
Thank you.
If I might just follow briefly. One, I want to be really clear. I'm not impugning the integrity of anybody who works in the district office. I think people work really hard everywhere in the district. So let me be really clear about that. I'm not trying to attack anybody. It's just looking at the model. One of the things that I love about this document is the subheading, a living document. Yeah, we're working on it. We're trying to figure it out. And so if that can eventually be brought into our plan, and then something at the beginning that does a stronger analysis of how did we get here? You know, we were headed off a cliff before. Why was that? And I think if we can kind of more clearly understand that and delineate it, then it will make the plan seem more rational, at least to me. So I've got other questions.
I would like to respond to that. I think that both your points are really good points. The challenge is that a lot of the discussions around the BAM and how do we get to this situation that we're in, you would have multiple answers. And the best that we can do in terms of the plan, in taking your comments, is to summarize how people are thinking about it and how we're discussing it. And maybe not have decisions, because there are a lot of decisions that haven't been made, or maybe disagreement. We hear some people say, well, the district budget, has ballooned, and and then you hear people say, well, we've declined in enrollment, but at the same time we've expanded in FTF, and this is part of our problem. And probably the truth lies in multiple issues, which is why we've received this letter from ACCJC. The executive level turnover adds to all of those pieces. So We can look at adding something to sort of capture the essence of the arguments and the debate around it without then having to commit to this is what we all agree to. If that, I think that might help satisfy that.
Thank you. Oh, Trustee Withrow may have one more question.
What, first of all, thank you very much for the document. I think it's well done and very expansive. To what degree have you invoked things into the process to make sure it's a living document and not a document that goes into a drawer somewhere? The next time we get pinged on by somebody, we pull it out and say we need to redo it.
Right. We built into the plan committed actions, timelines, and milestones. And so that we have a way to assess ourselves and how we're doing with the plan. As well, we look forward to the continued assistance of CBT and the report from FITMAC in helping us ensure that we move forward with this.
Okay.
Because we all had the same concerns. We're putting all this effort and time in this great thinking, and the thanks that you're giving is really a shared thanks for this collective document. But we want to make sure it's not something that sits on the shelf, because we all are concerned about the status that we're in, and we all care about this district. And so we built these committed actions, timelines, and milestones to check ourselves along the way.
I'd like to follow up on just a couple of the comments and questions before, but and again, a little background, I'm a business guy, so I look at this as a business plan.
Yes.
Okay. And there are things that are not in there in terms of our environmental set. In other words, we have, 615,000, 625,000 people in our service area. And to what degree are we, do we know what the makeup of our service area is looking for? What do they need? And do they know they need it? That kind of thing. To what degree have we looked at contract education? I didn't see that anywhere either. It may have been in there, but I didn't see it. Just an awful lot of community college districts that I've visited enhanced their revenue substantially with contract education. And I'm not an expert on it, but I've met with a couple, three presidents of colleges that were, they said they couldn't survive to the degree they're surviving without it. Okay. International education, I didn't see that in here either. And that used to be, going back a few years, for Peralta, a major area for revenue.
It still is. Yeah, about $7 million.
But it may be in there. I did not see it. I did not see it, an analysis of it. But I know that I've met a couple times with the Santa Monica people, and they supposedly have the best of the international programs in the state of California. And they indicated to me they felt that Peralta ought to be right up in the top 3. And to what degree are we emphasizing in that area, new areas? Yes, we do China, we do Korea and Vietnam, but to what degree have we looked at South America? I know we are looking at sub-Saharan Africa and places, but to what degree are we actually going at it in a business fashion, saying what can be done and how do we do it, and what's the strategy, what are the timelines, and who's accountable, and that kind of thing. To what degree do we look at how many of our students from our service area go out of our service area to a community college, specifically DVC and Chabot and Contra Costa College? Are we looking at it in terms of both numbers and why? Why are they doing that? What can we do to retain it? And then turn it around the other way. We have colleges that are very accessible to BART, And it's a whole lot easier in a lot of areas in Contra Costa County to come to at least two of our colleges than it is to go to DVC. And to get to Chabot is not easy at all. And certainly from San Leandro, the people can hop on Barton, come to ours. To what degree are we marketing in that area? I mean, if they're, you know, it used to be at least 10, 15 years ago that you weren't supposed to do that, you stayed home.
I mean, that was the agreement we had, should we let that go?
Yeah, well, they're winning and we're losing,
Yeah, okay.
okay? The unfunded mandates, one last thing. Unfunded mandates. To what degree have we done an analysis on the impact of unfunded mandates on our whole,
Trustee
the Peralta
Trustee
College?
Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow, on the unfunded mandate, we'll get to that in Chapter 5.
Okay.
I believe, so we'll go ahead and let, if there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and let VC Brown continue.
Okay, I will continue to Chapter 3, but many of the questions that you're asking are in the enrollment management plans, where each of those topics is talked about. However, what we will do is link to a report from International that will show everything that you're talking about there in terms of the goals and the expansion of International, because it is an important revenue source. So Chapter 3 discusses principles of integrated financial planning, long-term budget assumptions, the methodology of the budget projections, the state vision alignment with PCCD goals, and Student Services Integrated Action Plan. So each of these, again, if people have questions about Chapter 3, each of these are sort of laying out how we think about the budget and how we came to the budget reduction scenarios that are discussed in detail in Chapters 4 and 5. If there's no questions on that chapter.
A few. Trustee Reese?
I have a few questions on this chapter. I looked at the PCCD strategic goals, and I think one of the concerns that I had was that we had not actually had the conversation at the board level of the Vision for Success goals. We needed to, but we haven't. And so to see our strategic goals articulated in this particular way without us having the discussion was a little premature for me, because it's an important discussion to have and we need to do it, but we hadn't done it, and so so that was a little problematic. And when I was looking at the larger plan that had all of the colleges' strategic goals and plans of action to meet the Vision for Success goals, I would say it might be good for the colleges to, or the committees to look at them again, because there wasn't a clear pathway as to what was written down and whether it was actually going to be effectively moving towards that particular goal. And so what I'm trying to say is, as we move forward in this particular direction, we just want to make sure that we do things in a manner that is, we're doing it not just for the sake of doing it, as you were saying, but it's not going to sit on the shelf, but it's going to be a living document that we're going to refer to all the time, and it's really going to be our map that's going to allow us to move from where we are to where we want to be. So as I was looking at the different portions of it, those were the two things that came out. Our board, in terms of our goals, we hadn't had this discussion, and also the different colleges' plans of actions as it relates to our PCCD goal and then the Vision for Success goal at the state level. And the other item that I was going to also say, which refers a little bit back to what Trustee Nikki had just said, was when I looked at this in the very beginning, and it alludes back to what I had first said, my first comment, if I were to look at this, it is so robust and really quite amazing that the district that I would imagine would have absolutely no problems because it's so good, it's so well done, and it's very aspirational and inspirational. I guess going back to what Nikki was saying earlier, let's not be afraid to own what our problems are. If we really want to make it a living document, let's claim where we are, what our problems are, and let's put that out there. The first part of a solution in moving forward is to actually claiming and realizing that it's a problem. And there's a part of this where these are the things that we should be doing, but it's, again, in the present tense of we are doing or we have been doing.
Okay, yes, I think that we can, I think that that's a great suggestion again, and that we can address that in this plan by each chapter kind of having a problem statement and quickly get input from people about that so that we can at least, state it in the document. Because as we were talking through and working in the work groups around all of these topics, you're right. It's like the full problem wasn't in front of us, but in our minds, we all had the problem in front of us. And then there are occasions when the problem was laid out there, like with the BAM. So I think it would be great to add that. Yeah, yes, please.
I just wanted to respond to the strategic goals. So I think, again, we're at the issue with the time constraint, because in terms of the colleges had to certify alignment with Vision for Success goals. And so we had to certify, a few months ago, and the deadline is May 31st. So we do have a plan for each of the colleges to bring to the board before that May 31st deadline, our attempts at alignment, where we align. And I believe that in terms of the district goals and the district alignment, that too is coming back to shared governance, because we did allow for time to share what was in the draft to all of the colleges. And so there was a 2-week period just recently where all of the colleges had to provide feedback on both the integrated plan in addition to the goals alignment.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, we met today to put the input from COA, Laney, BCC, as well as Merit into that one big document. But you can't do it all in one meeting. So we should have that done very shortly. But we did meet today to start incorporating all the feedback.
Thank you. And I also just thought I might provide a little statewide context too. So I just think that also it's really important to know that the State Chancellor's Office did put out a question about having us aligned to the Vision for Success goals. But there has been a lot of change and turnover at the State Chancellor's Office where there have been directives that we have a particular deadline. Chancellor Oakley just sent out an email saying, some colleges need an extension because we are understanding that we didn't have the data out in time. Then again, equity data just came out for the equity aligned plans, just came out last week when those plans are due in June and need to be certified also by the board. So the thought process for the way in which we should strategically as a system and asking each college and districts to be thinking about it has not been well executed, in my opinion. And so I think that we are being allowed to ask for extensions as well. And I think that it might behoove us to consider also doing an extension because we are in process with a lot of these things and taking it up. So we had hoped that the State Chancellor would give a blanket extension to everybody because of the mishaps that have been happening. But we have to apply for those extensions.
May I just make a comment?
Thank you for that, because I think that that's exactly what was missing. As I was reading the document, I was thinking to myself, we can't possibly be doing all of this. And as I did my second and third tier check, they weren't happening. And so telling us the other part of the narrative that we are not seeing in the document is exactly what needs to be in there as well. Because the fact that you are doing what you're doing, document that, as opposed to saying, we've done this, when in actuality, you weren't able to for X, Y, and Z reasons. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah. Are there any other questions or comments on Chapter 3? Okay, so let's quickly look at what the content is of Chapter 4. In this chapter, we look at the unrestricted general fund revenues from all sources, the restricted general funding sources, the unrestricted general fund forecast, college and district enrollment management plans, the 5-year budget and expenditure projections, guided pathways alignment, the student services technology plan, and each of these items, although I'm reading them off separately, all feed into the overall arching aspect of this chapter, which is looking at the reductions and what it is that we're going to do to address the declining enrollment, et cetera. So this chapter does have the committed actions, timeline, and milestones.
Are you opening for questions
Yes, if
now?
there's questions for Chapter 4?
Trustee Reese, if it's okay.
And I would say the same thing about the program reviews and the annual program reviews. If those are happening or not happening in the way that you would like them all to be, then again, if you could put that into the narrative too as well, in terms of the direction in which we'd like the district or the colleges to go.
Okay.
Any other questions for Chapter 4? Trustee Weinstein?
Yeah, just, I think relative to what was being said previously, I had a chance to look at the governor's, the Chancellor Oakley's report to the Board of Governors, and I saw that, that the state was not meeting the expectations for completion and success as he had hoped they would. And so when you see his new report, you'll see that it's extended so that it goes further in terms of meeting the promise that he had hoped for at the beginning. So it seems that it would make sense that we might be able to do that as well.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Trustee Brown?
Your microphone.
It says on page 38 that due to the significant decrease in the FTES from 15-16 to 16-17, the district and colleges began to engage in the proactive enrollment management practices in 17-18. And I recall there being an enrollment management committee that was established earlier than that. Is that incorrect? I remember there was
A district-wide one?
Yeah, from running out of the district office with Tamika Brown, and that's when we had started going out into the community, and there would be people, there would be representatives from the district that were enrolling that had interest sheets and job information. So but it didn't start in 16-17. It started, or it didn't start in 17-18. It started before then.
Let's see, when did it start? I believe it started in 17-18. I would have to double check for sure. But it may have started earlier in terms of gathering the data, because the RP group data external scan that they did was in 2017, and it served as the basis for the district strategic enrollment management plan that was developed that year and then the following year, and is now being revised. So those efforts that you're talking about, the outreach efforts and the cards and all of that, much of that has moved to, well, it was already at the colleges, but it's moved from the district to the colleges.
Okay.
Most of the outreach.
So the outreach then predated the strategic plan, is what we're saying? Okay.
Yes.
And then the other question I had is, we had developed a ad hoc committee that had brought members of the community together that were in positions that had a lot of community networking engagement. We're not doing that anymore, and I think that it's a disservice to the district to not use the members of the community that are our community partners or that want to be. It says that we're going to engage our partners, and we had people at the table that were grant writers and that were sociologists. We had people who were working with UC. We had people that were involved in programs, community programs with youth. but we're not doing that anymore. And that's, I think we're rolling ourselves backwards when we become more isolated. And I can't express enough that that's just an entirely frustrating thing that we tend to do, to cut off the community instead of using the opportunities and building the bridges that are out there. And to do enrollment management and not utilize our community partners and to have it insular makes it very limited in what we can do. And so while I think it's a great idea, I mean, I think these are great plans, if we do not include that community outreach, then we're not really going to have the success that we want to have. And so my question really is, where did that piece go? Why is it not included? We just were doing that last fall. What happened?
So from that short-term working group, we have been continually meeting with the group you're talking about, where she's a grant writer and has connections with major funders. Continually, we've been meeting with them and developing the whole plan. And is literally, as of today, we were in email about when's the next meeting. So that has continued. As well, in the enrollment management plans, specifically, the colleges spell out about community partnerships that they are engaged in and how it impacts enrollment, be that school districts and charter schools, be that corporations and like Facebook and Superior Court, and I mean, they could all speak to it. So I do not believe that that work was dropped, specifically from that work group, as well as we did definitely look at the athletic enrollment, and I know that the coach from Laney, being part of those conversations, that he has been talking with his college about forming a learning community and how to maximize the fact that they have high student enrollment, not just student enrollment, but student success. And so the work definitely has continued. I will say that very confidently. And the colleges could talk more about the different partnerships that have led to actual enrollment. East Bay Mud, there's all kinds of examples of that. What we probably should do is spell that out, maybe in a paragraph about it, and then when it links to the plans, people could see more detail about it, and then that way it would pop out more than it does now.
Thank you.
Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the one section dealing with technology, the Student Services Technology Plan. And my question...
What page are you on?
I think 45. This is page 45. We've been down the technology road so many times only to be disappointed, including, about a year ago. The board was brought a plan. We were told if we approved this, these miracles would happen. And within literally months, they came back and said, oh, well, we didn't really mean it. We need actually now a lot more money. And then et cetera, et cetera. So here's where I'm going here. Are we on track? Like, we've got some promises here about what we're going to do with technology. And I'm not a technologist, so I don't know. I can only trust the staff. And I guess what I'm asking is, are we over-promising, or are we really on track? We're really, these things, these elements that are part of our financial plan, they're on board, they're funded, we've got people in place, and they're really going to happen. That's, basic question. Thank you.
May I respond? So that plan is not an IT plan, actually. It's for student services, and it's part of our student success infrastructure. Why? Because these are the tools that basic colleges should have, right? A degree audit that's automated, transfer credit that is upfront. So to give you guys an update, for example, two things are there, MyPath and also the degree audit. In conjunction with the IT department and with VC Lam, actually our degree audit, we're ready to roll out and making it a front process versus a graduation process sometime before June. So we will have that. MyPath is also free, and it's also has been deployed. And actually, Peralta's the first district to go all campuses on MyPath, which is modularizing the application process, providing students with career exploration tools, getting to know Peralta College better, getting to know yourself through career assessments. So some of those things are already in process, and those are the things that attracted me to come to the district because we need this district-wide. So there are some commitments to time, and I'll be honest with you guys, as much as my staff is small, we have been working with colleges, the VPSS, to identify key people who can help us with the configuration. A lot of these are not necessarily costly as far as dollars and cents, but more time. So another example would be our degree audit. We actually have the underpinnings for it, but we have some problems that we need to solve, and the solution is there. We just need to commit to the time to do the work. So a lot of these are moving forward, and we have them. I think we cannot wait, and I think the perspective that we both have is we have to collaborate because we need this sooner than later.
And I think also a huge part of, our move forward and to ensure student success is really to align IT with the organization in terms of our institutional goal and objective. So very much like the One Peralta, right? There were conversations around, well, let's wait until the implementation completes, because in the next version, we can really realize that value with that module or that functionality. But really, we can't do that because that's not doing justice to our organization. So a lot of the things that need to be implemented now, in which we can do in the current system, we're taking the steps and actually moving forward, such as the foundation to the degree audit is really transfer credits. And part of that is putting that configuration in our current system. And then when we do the upgrade in parallel, it's transparent. The upgrade will happen, it will already be configured. So we're not waiting for the overall project to actually begin in terms of completing the One Peralta upgrade project. We're starting efforts, the little steps that get us to the bigger step, and that's what we're doing. And there's always that foundation that you need to establish now in order to align the business. So strategically, it's about positioning, doing what we can with what we have. How fast do we move is based on the business in where they want to align. And if we don't have the capacity in-house to make that happen, then we look towards outside sources. But outside sources meaning that even if it's from a consulting standpoint, making sure that we're tying them to the deliverables and also hitting those milestones that's necessary. And also payment will be ensured based on that deliverable and sign off. We're not going to move in a way where it's like an open PO. Go ahead, build what you want, and they still don't get it done. We can't move that way anymore.
So what I'm hearing is that some of what we've got in this plan is actually in place, but that other parts aren't. And so here's the question that I'm asking. For the parts that we've got in here, we've said we're going to do these things. Is that budgeted and staffed already? Can we say, oh yeah, we're good, that's good to go? Or it's like, well, if we find the funding to do that amid all of our other financial priorities, then we'll do this.
We can make it more clear in the plan that the items that are addressed in the Student Services Technology Plan are the priority, and that we can fund those. And this is a great chapter to have a problem statement, because the reason why there is a Student Services Technology Plan is because we have all witnessed and experienced every semester the technological issues that students have with registering and with things crashing and all these things. So it's realistic. What's in there is realistic and doable, but we'll add a statement to make it more clear that these are the first baby steps. And then once we have the full IT plan, that people will understand that this is the first steps as we move into the larger needs of IT.
So just to follow on that, I think having the problem statement is great. And what I would love to see in this living document is actually then a deeper problem statement. Because for as long as I've been on this board, and prior to me being on this board, technology implementation has been a disaster. And I never quite understand why. I'm asking the question, well, why did that fail? Why did the board approve that, but then it didn't come through? Or, you know, what happened in the implementation here? And so I think if we can begin to understand some of the failings of how we try to get things done and then they don't happen, I think then we can put in place a better plan rather than just say, oh yeah, we'll do it better next time, but we don't know what went wrong last time. And I'll just throw out one other thing that I don't see in the document, and that is any discussion of our facilities. Now, thankfully, we have $800 million to put into our facilities, but it strikes me that a core component of our enrollment challenges have to do with our facilities. You know.
So.
And if we don't include that, I think we're missing something. And I think it's an important opportunity for us to be able to put forward, we're going to do this bond implementation differently so that it won't take 12 years to get one building at the College of Alameda built.
Okay,
and,
yeah,
and then an understanding of what did we do wrong that we're going to do it differently now.
I think that what you're asking for is relevant. Given that the document is already 66 pages,
Yes.
what we did to be able to go deeper into some areas is to update the existing plans. So on the technology piece, once we receive the IT full plan, that's where I believe the deeper discussion should be, and that's something that we would link to. Same with the infrastructure. In the college enrollment plans, it's discussed in detail. I agree we could add a paragraph about it and make sure that people, you know, we could pull that out, but then they can go into the document where at least I know COA as well as Laney, actually BCC, everybody talked about this in their enrollment management plans as it impacts enrollment. So instead of lengthening the document, I think that's the best way for us to do it.
And again, I'm not trying to be critical like, oh, you all messed this up.
No,
It's
we get
more of a constructive process. I think Trustee Reese was saying, we need, you know, milestones, timelines, so we can check them off and go, yeah, we got there, good, you know, and that's what we're actually doing so that it's not just that shelf document that we pull out and go, oh yeah, we meant to do that.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to share that our facilities and technology master plans certainly outline across the board the red maps, if you guys remember seeing it, where all the infrastructure related issues are. Remember, it goes from red to orange to yellow. And you'll see across most of our, at least these three campuses particularly, there's a lot of that need. And so I think the plans illustrate the hope that we can start to resolve those issues as part of the planning around this next bond and what we need to do beyond this bond in order to improve those things.
And if we don't have an analysis of how we messed it up before, we're probably going to repeat the same mistake.
I have Trustee Brown and then Trustee Reese.
I want to just make sure that we don't lose sight of our data-driven conclusions, because there are things that one may anecdotally feel reflect the community's feeling and why we have declining enrollment that may not be what the community actually feels is their primary concern. Issues regarding access and equity are what I hear when I do outreach, when I go to community meetings, when I am in community-based organizations. And I want to make sure that we don't set our priorities based on anecdotal information or personal beliefs, but that we stick to data-driven conclusions and policy.
Yes.
Trustee Reese.
I realize that the Student Success Technology Plan is separate from the technology plan, but I have to say, and this is me not really knowing much about technology, so I may be using the wrong metaphor, but it seems to me that the technology plan or the technology of our district is kind of the mothership. And so everything gets attached to that. And so what I would request, independent of this particular document, is that the last time you came to us, you gave us a PowerPoint presentation. We haven't seen a technology plan, and I think that that is crucial and critical to both both understanding this document, but also going forward, because the fact that things are so fragmented, whereas they should be holistic. And it seems to me that you should be, the technology guru should be the person that allows for all of the other parts to work well.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next chapter, chapter 5, we just have 2 more chapters. Chapter 5 discusses the proposed board policy to establish a 10% reserves. It looks at improving the retirement or OPEB management. It looks at reducing operational overspending and eliminating the structural deficit. Major sources of unrestricted general fund expenditures, general restricted obligation expenditures, and again, this chapter has committed actions, milestones, and timelines. The bulk of chapter 4 and 5 are really going into many of the key issues that ACCJC brought forward to us. So if there's any questions about chapter 5 or items in chapter 5.
We'll start with Trustee Reese.
I'm looking at the OPEB liabilities, and I am looking at the paragraph that seems to convey that although we have a significant OPEB liability, it seems to say that after the 2014 audit recommendations, there isn't a problem going forward. And I'm summarizing what I'm seeing here. And in my mind, what I keep on going back to is a January 26th of this year audit report where we had the conversation with the person from the accounting firm who did our audit. And what he had said, and I played it over and over and over again to make sure I understood this because this is a very nebulous subject. He had said that our OPEB liability, I believe the pre-2004, they are in a revocable trust, and that because it's a revocable trust, it is not in compliance with the federal GASB standards. And so that is a huge problem that is not indicated here that I think we need to figure out how to go forward with that. And maybe it doesn't have to show up here. Actually, it probably should show up here because it's a large problem. But this paragraph doesn't give me the sense that it is urgent. The fact that it's an unfunded liability is something that gives us budgetary pressure that we really should be strategically thinking about.
Trustee Reese, can you tell us what page you're on?
Sorry, I am on page 51.
Well, in regards to the OPEB liability, it is a revocable liability that is the district has signed into, and we only could do our due diligence in paying our debt. As far as coming up out of it, we don't have enough resources to actually pay off our debt long term. It's not in line with GASB because GASB, when the GASB rule changed, it says that since we have a it's a revocable trust, that it doesn't speak to that. So we have the county standards are different when you speak about of irrevocable trust and irrevocable trust, and we're not in line with that. So since it is that way, we have to just monitor, ensure that we can pay the debt as we go along. And that's what we are speaking to basically in this document, that even though it's not in line with the standard as far as those GASB regulations, it is what it is. It's a revocable district, and we are able at this time to pay our long-term debt as it relates to our cash flow and going forward in our budget.
And if I can also share that after speaking with our financial advisor today, specifically on OPEB, they are in the process of conducting a report, an OPEB report. So that request was just made today by myself and by Dr. White. So as a living document, we will get updated information in terms of where we're at with our liability, with our fiduciary responsibility, and we'll have a much clearer picture and analysis to update this plan as we're moving forward.
Great, great.
But I'd also like to emphasize, if I may, that at this point in time, the statement is correct. at this point in time, that there is a revocable trust, that we're able to pay our debt, and thank goodness for the revocable trust. It allows that to happen. The liability, as she was saying earlier, was set up that way many, many years ago, but we are going to get a full analysis and report from our financial advisor, our bond advisor for OPEB, and that will be coming to the board. We want to make sure, however, and I'm glad you brought it up, that whatever statements we're making around that particular problem or issue, maybe it's not really a problem, but it's definitely an issue, is an accurate statement when this document goes to ACCJC. And we expect that report to come to the board in May. Trustee Brown.
Yeah, I want to invite Trustee Withrow to correct me if I misstate, but because of the importance of ensuring that our faculty and staff who are Peralta employees have their retirement set, Trustee Withrow and Trustee Riley before him, and I joined the Peralta Retirement Board, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago, to specifically work on this issue. And we've been working on this for the last, at least in my tenure, for the last, 3 years. Before that, I was an interim or a substitute when Cycalasa got sick. Trustee Withrow has been working on changing the trust from a revocable trust to an irrevocable trust. As the president of the retirement board, there is sufficient funds to pay for the retirement obligations. And the reason that it was a revocable trust is that, was it 12, 15 years ago, before cities and counties and community college districts even began to put away money to save for the unfunded liabilities for the post-retirement obligations, Peralta put money away because of its commitment to its employees, and that's why there's enough money to cover those costs right now. And what we're doing is transferring the trust from a revocable, and revocable meaning that the language of this particular trust agreement is extremely strict, so that the only other cost that could be paid other than the liabilities or the costs of the health benefits is for the debt service on the bonds. So it's not a situation where you have a trust that can be called upon for anything. I think it would be a disservice, and misinformation for anyone to think that there is some loose arrangement with regard to the funding, because we've been working on this extremely hard. It's very complicated, but Trustee Withrow, with his financial background and with the consultants that we have regarding the investment, and as well as our legal counsel, have been doing, I think, a great job in managing the transition. And so it's solid in terms of the funding, and what we have to do now is just make sure that it's irrevocable. But that's also going to have an impact with regard to our general fund, because that means the debt service is going to have to be paid out of funds other than that bond. And that's why when GASB changed its rules, it's bad. It's a big deal for us, but I think it's a shocker for those who aren't as far down the line. And it feels like either the governor and the state legislature and the accounting board were sort of all converging on us at the same time, because it's going to make a big difference in where we get the funding to pay for the debt service. But I just want to make sure that we understand the broad picture, because this is easy to misunderstand, and this is a extremely important issue, but it has not been just languishing, and it's not something that no one's got their eye on. This is time that we spend that's, it's not a paid position to be on that board. At least it's not if you're a trustee. So it's been a lot of hours and a lot of time, because people should not take a job in public service and then be told at the end, sorry, we don't have the money. So we've been putting in the time, and we're moving along with that. And I think that when there is the statement regarding where we are on that, it needs to reflect the amount of work that's gone into, and the foresight to first get the OPEB bonds, which a lot of people don't have. And then second, to make sure that the funds that there's the irrevocable trust, and that also it's separated for the post-2004 employees and the newer hires.
So I want to take a chair's privilege right now. I know this is a very hot topic. Again, this is a living document. The conversation is good, but I want to continue to move us forward so that we don't get too bogged down in one area. without allowing you to move forward, BC Brown. So if we could, if it's on OPEB, then, no, okay, it's okay. We can have another question about something else. Thank you. Trustee Gonzalez, one.
Thank you. I want to explore the question of this board policy on the reserves. So I understand the value of having reserves. You know, every district wants reserves. You have a rainy day fund to tap into. But it strikes me that sometimes in some years you actually need to spend money to earn money. I could imagine a budget year in which our reserves were going to be less than 10% in order to generate FTES, in order to hit the funding formula guidelines. You need to fund these things in order to get paid. And I'm wondering whether as administrators, as presidents, as chancellor, as vice chancellors, you could imagine a year in which we had reserves that were below 10% or were going to be below 10%, and that we would need to stay below 10% because we would need to spend the money in order to recuperate 2-3 years down the road while we invested in the ability to generate revenues from state apportionment. Can you imagine such a situation?
Chancellor White, would you?
I'm sorry.
You need me to restate the question?
No, I think I heard it. The last part of it was, could you imagine such a situation? Anything can happen. We don't control a lot of things. We already talked about how the college district didn't make targets and what prompted the deficits that became structural deficits over time. So almost anything can happen. I guess the due diligence on our part involves our own amount of planning, accountability, ensuring that we are doing our due diligence not to fall below targets and spend more than we're taking in. Anything can happen. So that's my only response from a philosophical point of view, at least. But I agree with you, it's a good thing to have the reserves. In the event something like that does happen, you have backup.
Well, let me try to be more specific then, because and here's where I'm going with this. I like the idea of having a target of 10%. But this isn't just a target. This is a mandated rule. This says we shall do this. Under all circumstances, we shall have 10%. And if we fall below 10%, we shall, within 1 year, get back there. What if in a year we have some unforeseen expense? We have some liability that happens. We need to invest in something. And if we don't do, if we don't spend the money in either FTES to generate FTES, or we don't spend the money to hit certain equity targets or performance targets. And so then we miss those targets, and then the next year our funding is even lower because we missed those targets. Had we invested that money, we actually would have had more money the next year. But because we've got a board policy that says we must get to 10% in 1 year. Now, at our last board meeting, I asked this question, and Chancellor White said, well, you know, the board is the board. The board can always ignore its own policy. Well, it strikes me as in the moment that we are envisioning, when we're about to establish the policy, we envision a circumstance under which we would just ignore that policy. Maybe we should change the policy so that it's not one that we ignore. And I think this is actually a critical point. And here's why. I think that things go wrong in this district often because people ignore policy. We have so many people who have done workarounds because the policy doesn't work. And rather than going and saying, hey, look, this thing needs work fixing, they do a workaround. And then another person does a workaround. And pretty soon, you've been hiring hourlies for 15 years with people doing workarounds, and you're in big trouble. And And that's just one of 1,000 things that we need to actually say, wait, we actually need policy and procedure to mean something. People need to follow it. And if they find it unworkable, they need to bring it forward to say, here is an unworkable problem. I think we're establishing a board policy, if we actually do vote on this policy, that we will find is unworkable. And so I suggest that, in fact, we make this policy just a little more flexible. Thank you.
Chair.
So I'd like us to focus, again, we're giving direction on and having a study session on the information that's being presented to us, not deliberation about a particular policy that's come before us. And so you've had quite a bit of time, Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn, last board meeting and this board meeting on this particular issue. I believe I can speak for the board, that for my trustees, that we have heard your position loud and clear. We have heard your position, but we also want to be able to move this dialogue forward in this study session, in the spirit of the study session. So thank you. Trustee Withrow.
Just a quick comment. Reserves are, when you're dealing with an organization that works on the basis of forecasts, and forecasts in terms of both revenue and in terms of expenditures, you've got to have a reserve for those things that were unforecasted. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, we've got buildings that are 60 to 70 years old, and they weren't well built when they were built initially, and we haven't put and invested the funds in to maintain them. And when we have electrical short outs on buildings, we have to spend the money to fix it. We've got to have the money to do that. When you don't have a reserve, that means you should take an immediate impact of something within the organization that we don't want to do. When you have a reserve of a target of whatever is 10%, that means when it comes down below that, you set a target in your budgeting process in the following year to build back up to 10%. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why our unions aren't adamant that we have at least 10, and if I was president of the PFT, I'd be shooting for 25%, because the impacts of a people-oriented organization are going to be on people. Okay.
Thank you for that robust discussion. We can move on.
I do have a
PC Brown.
Sorry.
The last chapter in the 5-year integrated financial plan is Chapter 6. And in this chapter, we discuss related board policies. That's policies that are related to finance, internal controls. We also in this chapter address all current audit findings, including the OPEB item. We give an analysis of the executive level turnover rates, which are very high in this district. We also talk about what FITMAC and CBT are helping us with. And we discuss restructuring by looking at the delineation of functions that was completed, and then the plan to begin to talk about restructuring that will begin soon. And in this chapter as well, we have committed actions, milestones, and timelines. So if there are questions or comments about Chapter 6? Okay.
Oh, I think they're all talked out right now.
So the past Chapter 6 is a conclusion, which you can read. I won't need to summarize that, but I do want to thank all of the faculty, staff, and administration who gave their time and commitment to creating this document, and also thank the Board of Trustees for your comments tonight. We not only have taken written note of what you've said, but we also will re-watch these proceedings so we can make sure that we capture all of your comments. This is the first draft of the 5-year financial integrated plan, and we look forward to your approval on April 23rd when we bring forth the final 5-year integrated financial plan.
Thank you. Yes, Trustee Brown.
I'm just because this is for, it's being memorialized, I just want to make sure that we do exit interviews with regard to the administrative turnover, because it has been quite prolific. And we want to make sure that we do exit interviews of people who have left, and we get their feedback, because if we only look at those who are still here or just have come, we don't understand what could possibly happen to create that situation, and we really do need to get that feedback.
Thank you.
That's
Noted.
great. Thank you so much for the presentation. We will now move to item 2.2, Collaborative Brain Trust Update, and our presenter is Dr. Nikki Harrington.
Good evening, trustees, and Chancellor White, and all the rest of you that are here in attendance today. I wanted to, first of all, just say how much I appreciate all the work that Vice Chancellor Brown has done on this, and also May back here has done. Both of them have done a marvelous job on this document in a very short time. So kudos to you. What I'd like to spend time on is this sheet that looks like this that you have in front of you. We put this together to show the relationship and the integration of the three projects, that with the fiscal plan and the internal work that's being done by the district and its colleges, and the work by FCMAT and the work by CBT, we strive very hard to integrate those together so that they're playing off of each other. We're not duplicating work, but we're extending work, and they are complementary pieces of effort in the process. So what you see in front of you here is the list of FIP goals and the committed actions. So you see the 3 goals and the 9 committed actions that were in the document that are throughout the chapters in the document. And then you see the internal assessment, immediate, I should say short-term actions that are being taken, some examples of some of the short-term actions being taken. And then the next column is FCMAT's objectives. These are the 7 objectives that come right out of the study agreement that you endorsed as a board with FCMAT. So these are their 7 areas. And then the last column, the 4 objectives that proceed through 2 phases over the CBT project. And we line them up so that you could see which pieces are working with which pieces. So I'll start for CBT. We're now in phase 1. We have 2 phases. This is the first phase. It's about a 90-day period of time, March, April, May, with a report back to you in June with our findings. It's a lot of discovery. It's a lot of evidence-based research being done. So Trustee Brown, your comment about, I hope we're looking at data and evidence, and Trustee Reese, same thing, that, evidence-driven documents. We are doing a lot of data gathering for this period of the project, and I'll talk about a couple things in just a moment on that. The end of this phase, then, the report that we provide will dovetail with FCMAT. So FCMAT is doing the study of, as you know, these 7 things that they're looking at fiscally. They're going to say, here are your problem areas, here are the things that need to be addressed. They may give you some recommendations of what to do, and then you're left to fix the problems or to address the areas of need. And that's where CBT's second phase kicks in, is to pick up on FCMAT's recommendations fiscally, and to also look at the other areas, chapters that you've just gone through. So whether it's enrollment management, executive turnover, all of those kinds of issues, to give you more information of how to address those particular issues. And so we'll have a lot of quantitative data. We'll also have qualitative data that accompanies that. And that would be phase 2, which would kick off in the fall. It fits with the notion of this being a living document. This goes to ACCJC, and it says, okay, this is where we are. Adding the problem statements, I think that's a good recognition of some of the areas that aren't being addressed yet, but there's a plan to address them over the 5-year period. So I think that's a nice enhancement that you came out with tonight. So phase 2 would start in the fall, and we would pick up on those findings that we came up with, that FCMET came up with, and that are in your plan already, and embellish that a little bit more and give you some strategies to actually move forward. I had another chart I was going to do tonight, but with the interest of time, I won't do that, but maybe at a future meeting we can do that. A lot of our work is focused around the student life cycle. So the student life cycle, the student on the front end, you want the access issues. So if you're talking about, are we tapping all the various cohorts of students that are in our district? Are we bringing people to the colleges to take classes? Are we getting all the varieties of students that could access us? And what's the equity, and are there gaps in that access among various populations across the district? So that first stage in the process, that access stage, or the first time a student hears about or comes in contact with one of the Peralta colleges, you want that to be a very positive experience. Then the second step is the enrollment phase, where they actually enter the institution, and looking at data of people who come in, and do they stay? If they apply, do they then follow up and register for classes? If they register for classes, do they show up? If they show up, do they stay in the semester, finish the course, and have success in that course? And then do they persist on to succeeding semesters of coursework towards an educational goal, a certificate or a degree or transfer, or transfer. Then the third phase is the progression phase. So we look at data related to how students progress through the institution, how they move through, what are the barriers, what are the roadblocks, what are the things that they need for support services. Vice Chancellor Siffer, your thing on student services, support services, and what are they and what do they need, and are we doing them concurrently for online students just like face-to-face students? All that ties into that step. And then finally, completing their career goal, looking at embedded certificates so people can reach milestones and see success, and then move on and achieve a full certificate or degree, transfer if that's their goal, move on to a job if that's their goal, and are we supporting with career services and those kinds of things. So that's in a nutshell, and I'll cover that perhaps at a future meeting when we have a little bit more time for that. So in this chart, if you look at your 3 goal areas, and I'll start with the first one, increasing revenues. And of course, the revenues for the district and the colleges is predominantly from student enrollments. The new funding formula has a different configuration of that, but that's the majority of the funding, obviously, is from the state. The goal of being 60-20-20, moving towards that goal. You will get additional income from contract ed. You can get additional income from partnerships with business and industry and those kinds of things, but predominantly it's student enrollments and their progression and success towards completing what they need to in the 8 areas that are identified in the new funding formula. So under enrollment management, we're doing a lot of work there. First of all, we're looking at the enrollment management plans that the colleges have. We're looking at how enrollment is handled in the district. We have, as a component of this particular piece, actual work sessions at each of the colleges that are happening actually this week. We had a visit in March where we focused on the district office and what's happening at the district level overall for the Peralta colleges. And then this week, our team is going out to each of the 4 colleges and having meetings and talking about how things are working and how enrollment management is working, how the curriculum is working, what's working, what might need, where are there areas where there could be improvement for enrollment management. Also, as a component in this number 3, we also have some surveys. A couple of you asked, are we finding out what the region really wants? Are we finding out what people in the community really want? We do have several surveys. One is an internal survey of staff and students, faculty, staff, students. We can get at some of the climate issues in that survey. We can get at some of the reasons why people who work here feel there's been a struggle, what are ideas that they have. So the survey internally is important to get the perspective from people who work with students every day. We have an external set of 2 surveys. One is a community survey that's going out to the community. It's being done in English and also Chinese and Hispanic and the Hispanic language. So we have the surveys being done out in the community to see, do you know about the Peralta colleges? You know, are you coming to the colleges? If not, why not? What are the barriers for you to come to college? And we hope to get at some of the equity and achievement gaps and access gaps in that survey out to the community, because the community voice is very important in that process. The other one we're looking at is online students and how online students access the college. Are they getting the support they need? Are they getting what they need online? So that's another area. So I'm just hitting a couple of the highlights. Many of the outcomes of this first phase will tie to the things you've been talking about for this past hour. I jotted a lot of notes during this session, and probably 3/4 of them we already have covered in what's happening, but we'll embellish them with some of the other comments that came out tonight. So those recommendations then coming out in June, along with FCMAT's final report to you, will feed into your 5-year plan. The living document will live on in the fall and have more enhancements as you move into the fall term then. In the second area, reducing expenditures, this area we're focusing a lot on organizational structure, staffing, efficiencies of operations. Are there ways that things could be done in a more efficient manner? Is the staffing the right mix of staffing? You have lots of vacancies. A way to save money is, in the long term, is not to just hold the positions vacant that are vacant. A vacant position might be a position that's in greatest need, and another position that's filled might be a position that you really don't need as much. So analyzing your staffing is really important in balancing your budget and not just doing it through vacancies, although that's a stopgap for right now. We'll be looking also at the processes. What processes are people engaged in where they're having duplicate work, they're doing things 2 or 3 times where it could be done once, or something that's being done in a decentralized mode that should be centralized, or something that's centralized that perhaps would work better if it's decentralized. So we're looking at both sides of that equation to see what works best for the district as a whole and for the colleges independently. So those are some highlights of that area. And then in the third one, finally, the fiscal review, providing recommendations for fiscal stability. As an example, we had our fiscal team member do a deep dive into the document and provided Siri Brown with some results, detailed results that she'll be able to follow up with Vice Chancellor Johnson as well. And the 2 of them can work on that piece and look at some detail in the financial plan throughout the chapters. And then also dovetailing with FCMAT's work. OPEB was one of the ones that we looked at, for example, as an area. And then finally, our fourth area, recommendations for reducing executive turnover. This is a really, really important area. We looked, first of all, at the district level vacancies and turnover that's happened in your district office. You have 9 executive positions in your district office. Not one of those positions is filled with a seasoned person who's been here for longer than 2 years. I mean, it's people who are new, it's turnover, it's vacant, people on administrative leave, there's lots of turnover, and you already know that. But certainly that contributes to the district trying to get a handle and progress forward in a very healthy mode. So we'll be focused on that and see what we can do with that. Those are just some highlights of some of the areas that are in here. I heard a lot of comments from you about, do we have milestones and what exactly are you going to do? And that's a conclusion that people get when they read the 5-year plan. So what are you going to actually do? Some of that is in the detail in the individual enrollment plans. As an example, each college has an enrollment management plan, and the detail is there. In today's world, the linkage, technologically to be able to link to those plans and look at that detail is really helpful to folks. In some areas, you don't have the detail, like your information technology plan, for example, that there isn't a link for that because that doesn't exist right now. Those are areas that need improvement to be able to have that linkage back. So this, in essence, are the areas that we're covering right now. We're just 1 month into the process. We have all of April and all of May, and then we'll have a report for you in June. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Trustee Weinstein.
Hi, thank you very much for this.
Yes.
It's very clear and very specific, and I appreciate it. Every time I see the word enrollment management, I always think of enrollment management and success. And I put those together because I think we have a responsibility for the people coming in to make sure that they get to where they want to go and we don't forget about them. So I'm wondering, in your data analysis, have you looked at what is the percentage of students that we lose? And what would be the difference financially if we kept them?
Yes, what we do is we look at different data points along that student continuum. So where are your lost times? Where do you lose students? At what point in the continuum are you losing students? And then that would be part of your plan for in the fall. Once you know where those lost points are, then you can dive more deeply into that area to determine why. Why are we losing them between filling out an application and registering? Why are we losing them midway in the first semester? Why are we losing them between first and second semester? Why are they going through 2 or 3 or 4 semesters and never completing a degree? Or is it that they don't know that they've completed all the requirements for a degree? The degree audit will be great once, Jason, once that's in place. That'll be really wonderful because a student can see exactly what they have left to take. So those are all data points that we look at. We have a set of research questions for each phase of that cycle, from access on this end to completion and success on the other end.
Repeat that last question. Is
Yes.
there any analysis that has been done as to how many students we lose and what financially we would make up if we kept them?
We don't have that today because it's not complete. That's what we're working on this period of time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Reese.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yes.
I have a question about the timeline. So FICMAT is going to be done with their study the end of June. And the first phase is also, your first phase will end
Right.
June 30.
Right.
And so, but we want to, you have 2 phases, and one is from now until June 30, and the second phase that will be dealing with other things will be in the fall.
Right.
So I'm trying to wrap my mind around how you're going to dovetail the FICMAT study outcomes to your objectives that you want completed, I believe,
Yes.
by June 30.
Yes. Yes, that's a good question. We're not waiting till the end. The member of our team that is our fiscal person, Steve Crow, is working with Michelle from FICMAT, so they're going lockstep together, so they're proceeding together. We don't want to get ahead of them because, we want to be working in tandem with each other. So it's while we each have our own pathway that we're following, we want to be sure that we're in lockstep with them with the various pieces so that at the end, it's not a big surprise, and I doubt that it will be, because we're seeing the same things. We're looking at OPEB, we're looking at the structural deficit, we're looking at the fact that you have 90% of your expenditures are in staffing. It should be lower than that. I mean, all those things are all things that we're looking at on the fiscal side that mirrors what FICMAT is doing. The piece that goes beyond where they are is looking at some of the areas like the efficiencies and the centralized versus decentralized services, org structure. Those aren't things that FICMAT looks at. They look at just the financial picture, of what you're doing in your audit findings, those kinds of things. So yes, I doubt that there would be anything that would come out in June that would be a surprise to us, but that's one reason for Steve and Michelle, being connected.
Trustee Withrow.
In your analysis, it covers a lot of areas, but I want to just restrict it at this point in time in personnel staffing,
Yes?
where, for example, we have openings, and so they say, well, let's just freeze those because we're out of money. In most places, you have an analysis, what's the impact going to be by not having an industrial engineer or whatever, yes, it's open, but what's going to happen? We don't do that.
Right.
And could we get you to talk about what a rational organization would look at from the standpoint of staffing?
For one thing, you have a position control system so that you know what all the approved positions are in the district to start with. Then you look at the focus of those positions moving forward, what they cause. One of your biggest areas, and Dr. White mentioned this, is the structural deficit is contributed to a great deal by overspending, by people spending more than what they have in their budgets. You have a budget and your revenue and your expenditure side should match, so you don't have a structural deficit. From there, you then can analyze positions as you move forward. So each position would be analyzed as to its worth or its value. Your organizational chart right now, it looks like Swiss cheese. I mean, there are all these holes in it. I took a chart, and I just took a yellow highlighter, and I highlighted all the vacancies, and it's just yellow everywhere. And some of those positions are causing some of the problems and issues you're having right now. So when Trustee Gonzalez, is that how you say it, was talking about revenue and expenditures, we look at three phases: what you're getting in, how you're spending it, and what you're spending. So you have to build up as much as you can on the revenue end, and there's a lot of strategies for doing that. You need to look at your expenditures on the outgoing end and what you spend the money on, and prioritizing your positions so that the most needed ones are filled. You don't have a purchasing person in your office. How can you not have a director of purchasing? Things like that. I mean, those are positions that are critical, mission critical to the institution.
Right.
So there should be an analysis of mission critical versus we really do need this, but we could do without it for a year, versus maybe we need to restructure the department and have fewer staff in this area. And then the middle part of how you spend the money, which goes beyond your question, but how you spend your money has to do with your efficiencies, your organizational structure, what departments need what, an analysis of, it's everything from square footage per custodial staff all the way up to, how many people do you need in financial aid offices at the colleges. That's the kind of analysis that you do for a staffing pattern.
Okay.
And yes, you're in a position right now where you're trying to gain stability, but our thought is not just the stability, but long-range sustainability of your financial picture, and that's what the 5-year plan, we hope to infuse some more ideas into it for that piece, staffing being one area.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for the long answer. But.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you. I just want to follow on Trustee Withrow's question just now. I noticed, and actually I'd like to kind of raise this up in terms of the 5-year plan that we just looked at. I noticed as we broke out our expenditures by personnel areas, we didn't separate in that report academic administrators, classified administrators from faculty. We didn't break out part-time and full-time faculty, and it strikes me that that's actually leaving us information than we should probably have, in particular looking at trends. Now, I think everybody who's been around community colleges knows that there's been more regulation, more regulatory requirements on us, and so there's more administrative function needed.
Right.
It's not clear to me that you necessarily need an administrator to do some of those functions. and that should, in fact, be part of the analysis. Is that partly what you will also be looking at, is what is the actual function, and who could do that function?
No, the short answer is no, that's not part of what we would do. But you are correct that there are a variety of ways to staff your colleges and your district office in the mix of executive, administrative, and faculty who have administrative duties or release time to do duties. There's a mix of that, and colleges across the state do it differently. Some structure with mostly deans, associate deans, et cetera. Some structure heavily on department chairs. You have a lot of department chairs, for example, across your colleges. I think I'm trying to remember, Vice Chancellor Brown, was it 120 or something department chairs, or you were telling me? A little over 100 department chairs. That's a lot. But that's sort of the structure that you have here. So there are a variety of ways to do that. And it's not our job to tell you what you're doing is right or wrong. It's just how you choose to structure yourself to get the job done. But no, that's not part of our study, is to look at that piece.
I don't think it's necessarily a question of right or wrong. It's what's efficient and what's not efficient. And if what we're trying to do is analyze the organizational structure.
Right.
Look at the Swiss cheese and figure out, all right, that hole needs plugging.
Right.
What is the best way to plug that hole? Then, in fact, it is your job, I think, to make a recommendation about the most cost-efficient and morale-building vehicle, and and the other things that you want to look at, vehicle through which we get our services done to our students.
Right. Yeah, if that's kind of like second and third tier of work that would be done. Right now, the focus that we're doing is the district office, centralized versus decentralized services. And once you lay out what that mix is going to be, it tells you more about what your district office organizational structure needs to look like. So that's kind of the focus of it, not the structure in each of the 4 colleges. That would be a valuable study, yes, but beyond what we do.
Well, even within the district office, I think anybody who's worked with classified employees understands that they're actually the backbone of what happens in an institution. Administrators often come and go in short order, and it's the classified workers who are often training the administrators in actually where the bathrooms are and what paperwork needs to be processed. So in looking at the district office, are you going to be looking at function in that regard, administrative versus classified?
No. Just looking at the structure for the district office, how you look at instruction, student services, infotech, all the various slices of that based on whether or not a service is centralized or decentralized. Okay. So for example, if you have a vacancy in your research lead person, your director, and you also have, I think 2 of the 4 colleges don't have a researcher, you're lacking research function to do data analysis to help you with enrollment management, as an example. That's just one example. So the fix for that can be researchers at each of the colleges. It can be a stronger focus in the district office. It depends on how you want to do that as a district.
Well, I might suggest that if we looked at who's doing what, we might find some significant cost savings. Researchers don't necessarily need to be vice chancellors. Researchers could be classified employees, or there could be any number of the PhDs and master's degree faculty members who are quite expert in a lot of these areas. So I suggest it might be an area where you could find some fruitful conclusions.
So we're not going to, I know we're not going to entertain that particular question, but thank you for sharing. If there are no other questions, I want to thank you so much for the update, and we look forward to the next report at the end of June. And so thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
We are going to move to out of order to public communication. I want to apologize deeply to all of the students who have waited patiently, who are still here. If the students are still here, can you all please come up to the podium? And so for expediency, what we'll do is exactly in any order, if you state your name, and then go ahead and come up to the mic, and it's on. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sadie Bretto, and I'm a theater major at Laney College. As Laney College is the biggest campus among the district, it is disheartening to see the state of disrepair the buildings appear to be in. 2 weeks ago, Laney experienced a blown transformer, which unfortunately led to a campus shutdown on the 29th of March. We are still deprived of important campus facilities. This caused the theater department specifically to lose a performance of our spring production. The current status of our buildings, more intently the Odell Johnson Performing Arts Center, undermines the work and academic success of students and jeopardizes future opportunities. In fall of 2018, I joined Laney College and their theater arts department. Within the first month of rehearsal, our director, Michael Torres, let us know there would be no funding given to our production for props, costumes, and set. This equates to a sports team being forced to purchase their own equipment and upkeep their own field. In the following months, we experienced broken sinks and overflowing trash. Students spent over 20 hours a week rehearsing outside of regular school schedules and suggested study time for classes for the production, and yet we have experienced a flooding that has made the department's chair's office completely inoperative and affected our rehearsal space. The department has filed multiple complaints in the past. We continue to be ignored. Students brought in their own clothing for costumes, props were made and borrowed from other schools, and costumes and set were purchased out of our director's pocket. We prepared and rehearsed for our final 4 performances, but after our first weekend, we had a cancellation of our 3rd performance due to this transformer failure. Our department relies on our ticket sales. We should not have to depend on the state of our campus to fund our department. One of the Laney College budget development principles of 2014 states the budget should demonstrate a commitment to student access and equity, but as I've experienced, this principle does not seem to be followed through. Myself and my colleagues are here to persuade you to allocate funding for the Laney College Theater Department, as we are the only theater department in the district. With our hard work, our spring production has been picked up by a professional theater in Berkeley. This is much of an advancement for Laney as it is for our theater students. We have received funding from outside sources while we remain disproportionately neglected by the district. Thank you for your time.
Do we have Storm White?
So if you are with the rock group, can you please, so we want to prioritize some of the rock students. Did they all leave?
Did all the rock students leave? I see one right there. Thank you all. They've been here since 6. Any comments? Yeah.
Come up.
Can you speak for the group that had to leave?
Excuse me?
Can you speak for the group who had to leave?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I'm Thomas Classy, a student at Laney, graduate of COA in the aviation program. And while I'm waiting for the Department of Rehab to come through and pay for my tools to take my tests, I found out that the welding classes and the industrial maintenance program here dovetail better than anything else. So I want to thank all of Peralta for being here, because there's nothing like education. In the meantime, if it wasn't for rock, I wouldn't have been able to do this. And that meant that I would have been out on the street. So I want to say that rock is that important of being able to help me continue on with my education for the sake of myself, my family, and my community. Some of my members have gone on and completed their degrees and are been accepted just this last week to dozens of colleges, and some of the other people from rock can say the same thing about how well they've done. So I want to say that Trustee Jordan has been working with us and tirelessly has carried on, and we say that education beats anything. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Storm White?
Hi, it was explained to me that we would receive 2 minutes each, and I would like to give or allocate my time to Priscilla if possible, please. Who may need it? Thank you. Hello.
My name is Priscilla Solis, and I'm with Laney College as well, and I'm majoring in theater arts.
Can you put the microphone a little closer?
Sure.
Or
Or So Laney College is the only college that offers a theater department, and as well is the largest, the most, and demographically diverse school out of all 4 colleges, but is lacking in updated and renovated infrastructure, which has led to fires, small floods, and other hazards and have threatened not only the physical safety of students, but endangered academic progress within our student communities. I mean, why do we pay for campus fees and health insurance if we are not receiving the basic needs that we deserve and are promised to be kept safe to ensure academic success? The implication that we as a collective in the theater department is that we are not held at a high enough tier to even receive a budget. Even though, again, out of the district's 4 colleges, Laney College is the only school that has a theater department that is transferable to a higher education universities, yet when we put on a production, our professor has to pay out of pocket because we are not allotted any funding. Student success is when we, the students, find meaning and purpose in our college experience. And here we are, assembled, with barely a paddle to get through the rapids that are supposed to help shape our experiences for our futures. We, the theater department, who are from 16 to 30 hours a week working on our PR, our most recent production, between research, rehearsals, meetings with professional companies, as well as opportunities we've created for ourselves through this process by networking with outside companies. And all of this extensive work has been jeopardized by the neglect from not having proper funding distributed, especially to the theater department. According to the college budget development principles, under the standard operating procedures of Laney College, it is written that Laney College is to demonstrate a commitment to student success and equity, which we as a collective believe is not being met, and we ask to bring attention to this respectively. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ray Lopez. Ray Lopez.
Hello, my name is Ray Lopez. I go to Laney College, and on March 29th, a transformer blew up in the student center. And for me, as a student at Laney, it brought up a lot of concerns as to the maintenance to the buildings that are going on our campus. I'm a theater student at Laney, and just being notified that a transformer blew up on campus, it made me think about, how prioritized is the maintenance on our campus. I'm unaware of how the budget works currently, but I think I agree that it's not about what's right or wrong about what you do with the budget, but what's efficient and inefficient. And I think if a transformer is potentially harming the safety of students on campus, it's not very efficient, the fact that, the transformer blew up. It's very clear that there is some inefficiency going on in regards to that maintenance. And in the theater department, in the theater building, there's a lot of things that have occurred. Flooding of our professor's office, which has very, very little attention. We're supposed to get new rugs. We're supposed to have that issue attended to, amongst other issues like our trash overflowing, like rodents in our building, and just it's just makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable to be a theater student on a campus where the maintenance of the building has hasn't been really attended to efficiently. And in regards to our production, we are Pussy Riot, or everything is PR. A lot of sacrifices were made by the students involved with this production, and like for myself, I took off a lot of work to focus on this production, and some students as well as myself has dealt with a few deaths during the midst of this production, and I hope all of these issues can be addressed as soon as possible, because I don't want to be in class or be on campus and get injured or possibly die because of a maintenance issue that wasn't being attended to. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Garrett? Is Vincent Garrett still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, want to come up?
Yeah, we're gonna, can we hold on?
Oh, you want to hold off?
We'll do it together as a staff.
So are we allowed to do public comment for the faculty and staff of Rock now?
Yeah. Come on, yeah, come on
Is it
up.
okay if I go first and then I hand it to Alejandra and then hand it to Vince?
Yep.
Yes, just come and state your name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Chung. I am currently Ethnic Studies faculty, and I'm currently directing the Restoring Our Communities program, which is our Center for Formerly Incarcerated Students at Laney College. And I'm going to go off some notes so I don't go over my time here. Earlier on, a lot of the trustees made mention of knowing who is in our service district. And so over the last 3 years, we found out that on any given day, about 16,000 individuals can be either incarcerated in a jail or on some form of community supervision, be that parole or probation. And so in response, about 2.5 years ago, we formed ROC, Restoring Our Communities, and we're almost at 300 enrolled, and we weren't comfortable. We wanted to be humble. We weren't comfortable talking about our celebrations and our awards up until around now. So Vince is going to talk more about seeing some of our transfers, some of our workforce placement, some people entering apprenticeships, and then Alejandra is going to talk about the importance of replicating our model, but doing so with a very strong intention of hiring and onboarding formerly incarcerated folks into the effort. And this is something that our president, Emil Gilkerson, has really, really supported for us. And so we have robust partnerships right now, including an expungement program with the Alameda County Public Defender. We have a partnership with the U.S. Department of Education on developing adult diversion programs. And so right now, all of this, in addition to winning a $1.1 million innovation award, I think puts us in a strong position. Thank you. I think all of that puts us in a very strong position to meet the call of Trustee Jordan's resolution. So thank you so much, and I'd like to cede the rest of my time to both Alejandra and Vince, who are both staff at Restoring Our Communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Alejandra? Alejandra, okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alejandra, and I am one of the student services specialists at Restoring Our Communities. I am also a former student of Laney, and at the time I came to Laney, I was a formerly incarcerated person coming back into society, and at the time, a support program like ROC didn't exist. So it was really by a lot of chance of meeting some very open-minded, enlightened professors at Laney that I was able to actually find housing, not be homeless, find all the bare necessities that I needed in order to be able to be not only a student but also a human, which is something that is largely denied of us when we're in environments of the carceral state. And so at ROC, the impact that we're able to have on a day-to-day basis is something that, quite frankly, is hard to quantify. And to qualify it, you really need to come and look at what our students are doing for themselves and for their community, and the impact that they have on one another as a means of uplifting the entire campus, quite frankly, and bringing equity to one another, to everybody else on their campus. Our students are stewards of the school. They're concerned not only with themselves, but with the success of other students on our campus. And that's something that is really humbling to see. And it is my privilege to work there. And being a person who is formerly incarcerated is a necessary component of any program like ROC at any other community college. And we've had community colleges from as far away as Arkansas come to visit us to see why ROC is what it is. With our students and with our formerly incarcerated staff. And so having formerly incarcerated staff is so critical because we have become the subject matter experts in what it is to be a person who's been in custody and who is now looking to move on with our lives and have positive life outcomes, not only for ourselves, but for our communities, for the people that engage with us on a day-to-day basis, for the public health and public safety of everybody. And so I just can't stress enough that ROC is not only a success for Laney College and for the district, but that it's also something that's really critical, especially with some of the information that our director, Roger Chung, shared with you all. So I'll end my time there, but I'd like to thank you all again, and please be in strong support of Trustee Jordan's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vincent Garrett. I'm also staff at Restoring Our Communities here at Laney College. I'm also alumni of Merritt College, graduated with 5 degrees, 2 certificates in 2014. I was a high school dropout, so when I came back to school, I kind of went crazy. But and I transferred to UC Berkeley, graduated there in 2016, and now I'm at University of San Francisco working on a master's degree. I'm almost done with that. Right. Thank you. Also formerly incarcerated. I had a drug problem, and so I stayed in and out of prison from 93 to 99. And I got clean in 99, been clean ever since. I'm in my 20th years of being clean. And so I don't want to talk too much about me, but that's a little bit of my experiences. And so I had to get my record expunged. And so with that, I brought that knowledge to, like, well, if I could do it, why can't we do it for the rest of our students? And so that kind of highlights the importance of having formerly incarcerated students lead the effort, or not formerly incarcerated alumni come back and share their experiences. But I want to make this about the students. We're starting to get some successes. We've been around since 2016, like Roger said. And, you know, as much as I want to claim one of our rock stars, Pauline Johnson, who was the valedictorian, she came in 2017. She was the 2017 valedictorian. She was a rock star on her own. But we're starting to get a lot of students. We have quite a few of them that went to UC Berkeley last year. And went to Cal State East Bay. But this year, we're starting to get quite a few acceptance letters, and I wanted to share those with you. So Lamar Bursey, one of our rock stars, he's one of our ambassadors. He got into UC Riverside, and he's waiting on word from UC Berkeley. And he's also an underground scholar, so he works with the underground scholars at UC Berkeley, and he's been doing that for quite a while. And he's also our work study student. And so he does a lot of work for the program, and he's really been instrumental in helping us. Shani, another student of ours, Shani Smith, she got accepted into Mills and to San Francisco State. Sunny got accepted into California State, CSU East Bay. Tyrese, he got into the UC Santa Cruz. And he's also waiting on word back. Him and Shani are waiting on word back if they got into UC Berkeley. So stay tuned. Mark Allen, he's one of our CTE. He's in the electrical program. He decided to apply for the Local 595. I was also a member years ago, a long time ago. But he got in. His interview rating score was 93.25%. And so those are just a few of many. And so, you know, I hope that you all take Ms. Jordan's, Trustee Jordan's resolution to heart. You know, the program has been doing good. She's also a rock star as well. And so, thank you.
So do we have Lamar Bursey?
Lamar Bursey is our UC Riverside acceptance guy, but he had to take off a little early. And
Okay.
So, unfortunately, all of our students that wanted to come speak had to leave a little early.
Okay, thank you. Terrence Williams, also. John Wernjern, also? Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Wanjiro. I'm also a theater student at Laney College. Our major concern was the condition of the building, as well as we operate without a budget. Sometimes during cold seasons, it can get too cold, sometimes it feels like it is as cold as the North Pole, without joking. But we hope that you take the condition of the building seriously, because the theater department is important in our lives as students, as well as it is in our communities. It's a source of inspiration and creativity. It's also a greater source of collaboration across departments, sometimes between faculty and students, faculty and faculty departments. I also believe that the department, as well as the building, is also a greater or a better source of income to the school, as we request you to invest in the students, as you invest in the construction or upgrade of the building. Because if there is something that holds together, shape, and influence the nature of our community, is theater. I believe that theater is so essential to the development of our community and our human nature. We request you to consider funding our theater department and perhaps start with the current building. I'm convinced that the impact of upgrading the current building is greater than the cost. I hope you will listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Sinceri? Daryl Ford? Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's on. Okay, you got me. Hello. You don't have to brace yourselves this week. I just have a couple things to say. First of all, I love you all. You're all wonderful. I want to hug you until it becomes awkward, each and every one of you. It might happen. I'm holding out hope. Maybe we'll get there. Tim knows. Anyways, I actually do want to, just talk about budget cuts really quickly, and I want to call your attention to a statement released recently by the Berkeley Unified School District. And it basically said that in an environment in which funding is slowing down and forcing them to make serious budget cuts, their board made a clear statement to faculty, parents, and students that they would keep the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. And then in the same letter, they actually explained how they were going to do it. I'm waiting or hoping or anything for such a statement from our own Board of Trustees or our administrative leadership and even our district's shared governance body, who have appeared as willing accomplices as we march towards fiscal responsibility that will most likely weigh heaviest on the shoulder of our part-time faculty and staff. That's my concern. For me, my hope is to see that the board make a unified statement that they will prioritize cuts at the administrative levels instead of quietly agreeing to cut faculty and staff jobs. After all, it's our faculty and staff that have the most contact with our students, and that's pretty much, I think I've heard some trustees say that's why we're all here. Without our students, we're not anything. Thank you.
Do we have Daryl Ford? Daryl Ford or Jabari Herbert?
Good evening, trustees and acting chancellor. My name is Jabari Herbert. I'm with FOCON. We are a small construction company based here in Oakland. I got involved with the community district bond program around the summer last year. I was, solicited and outreached by some of the larger contracting community. And for me to hear tonight that there's health and safety issues is a concern. There was $900 million with the new bond that's ready to create small and local jobs. I seen a resolution, speaking with the previous chancellor, there was a great sort of commitment by this board to hire a bond director that would report to the chancellor. That hasn't occurred. It's been five months since the voting community supported Peralta and supported the facilities bond and the other bond. It's unacceptable, I think, as leaders to allow the students that you represent to have health and life safety concerns. Hearing about a transformer going out, that's unacceptable for me to hear as a contractor. The small construction community is looking for you guys to be transparent, to looking for you guys to support the small local community, as you said, with the bonds, and start putting these dollars out on the street so that we could create the jobs, so that we can continue to hire, support the local apprenticeship programs as their graduates are looking to get those first jobs. It is a small contracting community that hires within our community, and a lot of those members in our community looks like the students and look like the ones around this board. So I'm asking that we sort of push getting the facilities upgraded, get these dollars on the street as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there Christine Will?
Hi, thank you. My name is Christine Will. I teach mathematics at Laney College, and I'm here also to talk about facilities. I'm concerned about the state of the facilities for my students, health and safety of our students, the health and safety of our staff. We have, we received an email from our administrator saying that that there was an issue with a power outage, when in reality there was a fire on campus while we're under a fire watch. And I'm upset about the non-transparency of that. I feel like, we haven't been taking care of our campus. Maintenance has been really lacking. It's not for lack of effort, I don't think. I think it's for lack of funds, maybe, lack of staffing, and I'm very, very concerned. Elevators not working, tower elevators not working, the library elevator. We have doors that are not working, exits to the theater that are not working. That's a fire hazard. I'm generally just the lack of respect that's being given to our students and our staff right now is just quite upsetting. And what my ask is that maybe that, as a board, that you make sure that contracts for all fire, life, and safety vendors are approved and fully funded by the beginning of the year, fully funded. And so that when the emergency does show up, that it can be taken care of immediately. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, just Darrell Ford. Is Darrell Ford here? If not, this concludes public comment.
Thank you for that, Madam Vice President. We will resume our regular agenda. We are on 3.5, approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Finger pointed down that way. I'd like to make an adjustment.
Yes.
To move 4.3 to action.
4.3 has been requested to move to action, as well as
5.4 to action.
as well as 5.4.
Can I request to move 4.4 forward?
Yes, and 4.4 has been requested just to be moved up.
Yeah.
How far up would you like it? Right at the beginning?
Because I have a statistics test tomorrow.
Any other adjustments? So we have a first. Did we get a second on the agenda? It's been approved. Can we have a roll call, please?
Student Trustee Jordan?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella-Reese? Yes. Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein? Yes. Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. We are going to move, what was it, 4.4? 4.4 is going to be up next. Student Trustee Jordan.
We just need a motion and approve. Second.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution, Foundation's Resolution 4.4.
Second.
So it's been, we just need a roll call. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
It's been moved, second, we have a second by Trustee Weinstein. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds good.
late.
Motion carries by consensus. Associated Student Government Reports. Is there anyone here? We have some. Associated Student Government Reports. I'm sorry, my mic was off.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Romina, representing Berkeley City College. I have a couple reports. Two students from Berkeley City College, Adam, one of our senators, and Raul Solario Vargas. He's the Latinx club president, GSA treasurer, and UCRC volunteer. We're accompanied by Alejandra Tomas, which is our director of student services at the CCCCC at the State Capitol General Assembly from April 5th through the 7th. They were able to provide feedback and vote on several resolutions that are being proposed by the CCCCC, such as the resolution of overnight parking, like parking at Laney for homeless students where they wouldn't get cited for parking overnight. And other parking lots where they have. BCC unfortunately doesn't have any parking space available, so any parking lots that do have that. Also, election days as a system-wide holidays, which is S19-8-02, and financial aid that supports college access and success. They were also able to attend various professional development activities, such as the Parley Pro training, marketing students' voices heard at the state capitol, equitable practices, and more. Also, as you guys are very well, and if for the people that aren't aware, the student elections are very much underway. We have a lot of people running for office, as well as two students from BCC running for student trustee position. So once again, voting does happen the 16th and 17th. At Berkeley City College, it will happen from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. in person. There will people there taking, and it will also be available online throughout the whole day. So I do want to say that. I also just wanted to end with one note, and this is from the rapper that just passed, Nipsey Hussle, and it was a quote from him that I think everyone should hear. The highest human act is to inspire. So let's all inspire our students to be the best version of themselves.
Good evening. I will be giving an update on ASCOA. So last week we had a spring cleanup, and currently we've been working on the cafeteria, and the kiosk has arrived, and we're still in the process of assembling the parts. Yeah, that's all we have. Thank you.
There he is.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Can I start out by thanking the theater students for coming in today and really expressing their experience on Laney's campus and how the transformer situation has really affected them on campus. Unfortunately, this isn't anything new. Things like this, maybe not like on a grand scale, but smaller and more just as impactful things happen on campus all the time, like leaks, ADA accessibility issues on elevators, doors, and things like that. And with that, I'd like to invite them to come to our ASLC meeting and see if we can support them with funding and any kind of support. So one of ASLC's job, actually, let me start out by introducing my council. I brought a couple of my council to come in today. This James Cross, he is our new senator. Carlos, he is an internal secretary. Antoinette, she's also a senator. Iveta is another senator. And Justice, who is our SLC internal secretary. So this is the powerhouse team. You know, we do a lot. We try to do our best while also juggling work, school. You know, rent's expensive out here. We gotta pay it. One of ASLC's job is to represent students as stakeholders on Laney's campus at shared governance committees, and that's exactly what we do. We split up the shared governance committees among us, but this semester we decided to go to pretty much all of us to go to facilities. We think that's like a super important one, especially in the state of our student center. So we've been going maybe like 4 or 5 deep and just complaining. And I don't see the chair here, but he low-key hates us a little bit. Not really. He doesn't actually hit us. On Friday, a couple of weeks ago, there was a transformer failure, more like explosion. I was on the 4th floor of the student center, and I heard it from the basement, and then all the lights went out. And on the 4th floor of the student center, there's only windows in the hallway, right? So all the other offices are dark. There's no lights, completely dark. Me and another student went around clearing the rooms. The fire marshals were not there. They didn't take any students out. We exited the student center through the back. We saw the smoke, and then we went to the F building where the alarms were not on, but the power was out. The students were in the rooms, but not evacuated. They're just waiting. So me and one of the welding department teachers and a staff member from the cafeteria went around and emptied the classrooms. Okay. So Laney wasn't prepared to handle this kind of situation, right? Not before. We've talked about this. I've come to every meeting and I complained about this kind of stuff. And I hate to say it, but we kind of told you so, right? Like we said this kind of thing is eventually going to happen, and we're glad that nobody was hurt, but I think it could have definitely been worse. And during, Laney was not prepared. Nobody was emptying the rooms. Nobody was going around checking if students were okay. And after, Laney's still not prepared. Classes are being put in conference rooms where only one elevator works, so you might wait 5 to 10 minutes to get to the 8th floor of the tower. Our ASLC office was moved to E260, but no desks were set up for us. We don't have space to actually work. We've been struggling to find meeting places, so we had Faculty Senate actually offer us their space. We have students coming to us asking for microwaves, to use microwaves, because they're not able to get into a student center. Students are asking us for places to study. Even though the library is open a little bit later, I don't think it's enough. I think this just goes to show that the student center is a crucial part of the campus. Outside of the library and outside of the classroom, the student center is the main place where students go to hang out, to study, to have club space. And I think as tragic as this incident is, it just goes to show that we need to do more to support students and support facilities. Thank you.
Excuse me, does anyone know how to turn on the air?
Did you leave it on? Hello? Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so before I start my report, I actually want to commend all of my constituency groups that came up here to speak today. That was very compelling of them to do so and very righteous of them. And I also want to show my overwhelming support to my other colleagues and all the other ASs. You know, we're one college, one school, one district, just made of 4 different parts, right? So what I first want to say is that, actually, let me do a little transition. If no one knew, I'm a regional affairs director of Region 3, which is the Bay Area. It is a very instrumental part of SSCCC, which is the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. We had our General Assembly last week, and there was 24 resolutions that were voted on, and 20 of them passed. And I'm glad you guys decided to support in the resolution that Aisha wrote back in 2017, which passed with 86 out of 90 schools that voted in the affirmative to put that into the Legislative Affairs Committee and pass that into legislation. Last week, me and Montel, as the Regional Affairs Director and System Affairs Director of the Bay Area region, went and talked to Assemblymember Mark Berman. Yeah. About AB 302. We also talked to a few assembly members, which includes Jose Medina, about AB 1504 for the 2 SRF, because we want to support in our state legislative student committee, basically, which is supported by the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's Office and the Foundation for California Community Colleges. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I do want to commend like the other colleges that were able to come. It was great to have a little bit of Peralta support there and to be able to vote on those 20 resolutions. Yeah, 20 resolutions that passed. So back as the ASMC president, we did attend last week from the 5th through the 7th and voted in those resolutions. We have also just been trying to make sure like our transitions are together for next year's board. I've been trying to pull documents and things and figuring out next steps and writing stuff out for the next president and the next entire board for next year to have institutional memory, because it's very important, because without it we're lost, and it's not like sometimes it's not like we're going to get the support that we need from a few people. But the main part of my report that I actually wrote like 2 days ago that I didn't even know was going to be in good support, considering the way today just fell out, was I just wanted to make clear or bring up to you, the Board of Trustees, that I hope you guys are really listening to what we're saying. Last week when I was at GA, I listened to 4 different regions. I listened to Region 4, which is the Silicon Valley, Region 5, which is Cowtown, Modesto, and all that, Region 1, the College of the Redwoods, and Region 8 and 7, which is more LA district. And then we all shared common goals of what we wanted to get done, but what they all shared was that their Board of Trustees didn't listen. And there was a lot that didn't happen. So I just wanted to make sure that when you guys are listening to us, yes, we're up here and we're saying it so nicely. We're like, can you please let it happen and all these other things. But we're saying something with the substance, right? We're saying something that we obviously want you to pay attention to, because it is affecting us to a point where most of us can't even get student success. And the whole point of why we're here and why most of people who are here being paid is because of us, because of the student success that we're putting out there. And we can barely get it because there's ADA compliance issues that are happening, or there may be just people not even wanting to do a simple thing because they're just there to collect a paycheck. And I don't have to deal with this as much because my campus has been helpful, but I can't speak for all my other sister college campuses because I'm not there. And I just want to make sure, just even as my position as a regional affairs director that represents 13 different colleges in the Bay Area, which is 800,000 students of the 2.1 million constituents that I have to represent, that Peralta is actually paying attention. Because I don't want to be one of the 72 districts in the California community college system that isn't listening to their students, and then we have issues of actually putting our students in cardiac arrest, or we have issues of putting our students in places that they don't need to be in. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that you're listening to us, because I want our students to have success. Because at the end of the day, there are some people here that are not putting in the effort, and then there's other people who are putting in overwhelming effort, working 20-hour days to make sure that we are getting what we need. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. It looks like our Peralta Classified Senate and Academic here unless they are wandering around. I think we did. I think we did. So let me just say that tonight's comments by students and faculty, I know were heard loud and clear by this board. And there's quite a bit of discussion that happens internally that you all don't get to hear, that you're not privy to. But this board takes to heart all of the comments, especially, it's the best part of the night for me when I hear from students. Otherwise, we don't know what's happening on the ground. So I, and of course, we all appreciate you very, very much. So thank you. We are now moving on to the Chancellor's report.
Thank you very much, President Bonilla. And I'm sorry the students have left already, but I'd like to also say that I know the administration takes to heart these issues and problems. As you know, we have quickly been trying to get our VC of General Services, District General Services, on board. He was here last week. Unfortunately, he's in Europe for a couple of weeks, but he will be here April 22nd, which is Monday after next. In the meantime, I know that the college president and Vice Chancellor Johnson have been on top of the issue regarding the transformer, and I would just like for her to take a few minutes, if she will, to just bring us quickly up to date.
Thank you, Chancellor White. So I know I've been sending updates, trustees, but wanted to clarify what happened on March 29th. What we had was technically called a flash arc that was at 12,000 volts, coming to the area of wires and metal, causing smoke and a bang, but it wasn't a fire with flames and those types of things. I appreciate our student ASLC president and everybody helping to safely move people through the campus. There were a number of people on site also. I do agree that we could do better in terms of working on campus safety plans and thinking about how we work to do these. But there were a lot of staff on site and working together with Oakland Fire, and our staff and engineers were able to assess that the power went out in the building and we had to evacuate the entire campus and chose to do a campus closure on the next day. We wanted to let you know, though, that we did, our campus engineers did stay on a Thursday night, mapping out all possible opportunities and called over 28 electrical companies that would not respond to us or come out for particular reasons. So 28 electrical companies. And we needed them to separate these two buildings, F and the Student Center, from the rest of the electrical power to be able to put them back online. And finally, one electrical company did come out to do the work, and we were able to restore power to all the buildings except the two impacted, the F building and the Student Center, late Friday afternoon. And so we're able to reopen classes on Saturday. At the time of the power being back on, I understood that we would be getting a quote for electrical work and the work that would need to be done by the contractor, hopefully for, in last week was spring break, so I had anticipated that I would have it by Wednesday at the latest. To date, I still do not have a quote from an electrical contractor. As of Friday, the problem is that they want to, is that we had them on site today. They need to do a switchgear replacement, and they were on site again today to finish their fact-finding and gathering information, including measurements. Hopefully, we will have pricing by tomorrow, but again, execution of contracts and getting the parts. Part of the issue is that they wanted to research the parts that are in fact 50-year-old, and they were replacing like-for-like parts because of the condition of our buildings, right? Not putting in new things, having to look for those things. So it's really, quite frankly, it feels like it's long, but it is the quickest and most efficient way to actually remedy our buildings for the time being. And so when I found out on Wednesday that we weren't going to have the quote, Actually, on Tuesday afternoon, we immediately called together all of our administration who are here on campus, and many called in to begin a plan of action to move over 100 and plus sections that were scheduled for the F building and all the services in the student center, and create a plan of action to try to keep services open longer, to actually move services and classes to other rooms, to post signage across campus. I do want to say I recognize that like the ASLC and our students have been displaced into other areas. I certainly was told that they were offered the opportunity to use other offices, and so I'll be working in any desks in the E suite as well as T650, one of our conference rooms, in order to have meetings and do those things. But I'll work with our director and our staff to continue to make sure that we're communicating with our student leaders to make sure they understand. But in order to effectively move everything, we did have to use conference rooms in some cases in order to meet the instructional hours that we need to do. And I want to just say a debt of gratitude to the staff, the faculty, and especially our students who have been very understanding in this time. So I do not have an update on the status of when we will have an update on the timeline. I'm hoping to have something by tomorrow, and we'll certainly send a report out to all of you.
Thank you very much. And okay to continue. We appreciate that, and I know you're doing a good job of staying on top of it because you're keeping us informed. Thank you so much. The next item is the update on the revised first reading on proposed board policy 6250. And as you recall, at the March 26th meeting, we said we would meet with the Peralta Federation of Teachers to discuss their concerns and see what we could do in terms of language and the administrative procedures, because board policy is non-negotiable. So I do have an update on that, and Vice Chancellor Whitaker was a part of that meeting, and I'll ask her to give the update and language.
Thank you, Chancellor. So last Wednesday, the Chancellor, PFT, and myself met to address concerns regarding the newly proposed Board Policy 6250. And specifically, the meeting was to address the violation of the PFT contract with regard to Article 6. And as a result of our meeting last week, it was agreed that the district would provide language to the PFT by last Friday, to address Board Policy 6250, specifically in regards to what would happen in the event that the district's reserve fund fell below 10%. And again, we did provide that language as agreed upon last Friday, and the draft language is as follows. The Chancellor is responsible for ensuring the district's reserve fund balance is properly monitored and maintained. Should the district's reserve balance drop below the 10% threshold in any given year, the district shall adopt an operational budget to replenish the reserve balance to 10% within 1 year of the shortfall. The Chancellor shall develop a process to mitigate potential fiscal impact on current students, faculty, and staff. Such process shall comply with the California Education Code, California Government Code, and collective bargaining agreements. And this language is added to our already adopted administrative policy 6250.
And that's the update on the revised policy AP language, AP 6250. As far as we know, the policy is, they're either thinking about it or they've accepted it. I don't know which way to look at it because we haven't heard back. But I'm sure we will soon, and then there'll be signatures. I think by April 23rd at the latest, we'll have the final resolution around it. That administrative policy was designed to do two things, specifically not to tie the board's hands in terms of process procedure, but that we'd create one. And secondly, not to unduly, unfairly put the bargaining groups in a position where they would have to agree to a no layoff provision. So we were looking at it from a win-win point of view.
Thank you for that. Any questions?
And then I have one final, unless there's questions on that, I have one final item. You all know that Vice Chancellor Johnson is their last board meeting. And I would just like to say that I haven't known her a long time, but I've enjoyed working with her. I think she brought great energy and vision and spunk to Peralta in terms of her role. I appreciate her leadership, and I personally wish her all the best in everything she does going forward. Thank you, Romaneer. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. We will move to consent calendar. I need a motion, please.
Move approval.
I have an approval. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. We will move to action items, and let's go ahead and take action item 4.3.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been approved in second. Discussion? Trustee Brown.
Yeah, I wanted to propose that we modify this list a bit and provide some consideration.
Is your mic on?
Sorry. I wanted to suggest that we consider modifying this list a bit and see what my colleagues think. We don't have listed on here Greg Chow and, I'm sorry, call him Greg, Gary Chow, and Mark Evelsizer from Palomar. And the reason I would like us to consider those two is that Mr. Chow is recently added to the Mount SAC board, but he is a community member that's has a deep roots in working with his community and has an understanding of community college needs, and he has a pragmatic approach to board governance that I think would help develop a sort of service sense for community colleges. I had the benefit of having lunch with him. Actually, there were some trustees at Mount SAC that asked me to meet with him because they wanted me to talk him into being on this board. And I actually didn't know that that was what they wanted at first, but we talked about what his commitment was to his community and to public education and community colleges specifically. And he's a person who can do anything. He's doing this volunteer work because he's committed to it. And he's a business guy, he's a former CPA and a member of the business community in his area. And so I think that his involvement is purely out of altruistic purposes with a high level of skill, and I think he'd be a great addition. And then also, Mark Evelsizer is committed to increasing the student success and increasing equity in areas where underrepresented students are the demographic, and he's pushing for a reflection of that in the faculty and staff hiring, which is one of the issues that we've discussed in terms of equity and access and student success statewide. So I think those two are particularly committed to very important aspects of the development of community college education for the state of California.
Okay. So are you proposing to add two names to the list?
We can only have 7, and so what I would propose is that we modify the list to be Ken Brown, Linda Waugh, Gary Chow, Mary Jane Sanchez, Greg Bonacarsi, Mark Evelsizer, and Bridget Davlia. Kim Brown.
I didn't hear it. Did you say
Oh.
Brown?
You know what, I'm not even talking, I'm sorry. Kenneth Brown, Linda Waugh, Gary Chow, Mary Jane Sanchez, Greg Bonacarsi, Mark Evelsizer, and Bridget Davila.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Can you
So we-
clarify who is not on the list then?
Who's not on the list, right? Who are you removing?
Who are you removing?
The two that I really don't know and haven't worked with are, or haven't seen their work are Michael Baldini and Sally Biggin.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we'll just do roll call.
Trustee Withrow? Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein? I'm sorry? Abstain. Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Fantastic. We will now go to item 5.4. And we need a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. So trustee Reese.
My question on this is, again, because it's an ICC, and it's always a red flag for me whenever I see an ICC, specifically if we are either changing the scope, extending it, and Epic George has been somebody that we've used quite a few times, also in November, or not November, but last year as well. So could you give me a little information as to why we don't have somebody else doing this, and why the scope of work changed, and is he taking on the jobs or tasks of others, or go for it?
Through the chancellor, please.
And then I will ask the president to speak to your question.
Let's triangulate that.
We'll just triangulate that, Dr.
Lovely.
Karras.
All right. So I think I can hopefully answer your question. EPIC works in the North City's One Stop, which is a subcontract we get from the Alameda County Workforce Investment Board. So it's a grant we receive. And so he is a contractor. It's part of that grant we get through the county. What they're asking for him to do is additional scope of work, not what he's currently doing. Since he has a background in marketing and whatnot, they realized his skills would be very good in helping them develop some collateral material for the North County's Career Center to develop, and that's something currently we don't have on campus. And the One Stop works itself as a self-funded unit, so it's not really part of the college funding. They are completely funded through the One Stop grant itself, and so that's not a capacity they have internally within their staff. So they thought to use his skills instead of bringing in another person from the outside who doesn't know the One Stop, just use the skills of a person they have on board. And Epic's been doing a very good job. I didn't want to make a pun that he's doing an epic good job because he had such a great first name, which my first name was Epic. So that's how his contract it's come to be tonight for us.
So just point of clarification. So these are pass-through workforce dollars that are supporting this?
So WIWA dollars, yeah. So we
We're just
compete
the
for the
fiscal
North
agent.
County, yeah.
Okay.
So we were awarded for the north part of Alameda County.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Gonzalez, one.
Thank you. So I'm informed or told that there were layoffs in that office, 2 classified positions. And I'm wondering, is this that work? Or is this completely unrelated to that?
So the staff that did have to leave the One Stop because of reduction of the grant amount we received from the county, those were for job placement personnel, so they weren't doing marketing and that type of thing for the One Stop. That's partly why the collateral material is a little bit long in the tooth at the One Stop or North County's Career Center at the moment, because they just haven't had capacity to do that work. And so now they're trying to reimagine themselves, get the website to a modern state. So the previous staff did not do website work or marketing work for the One Stop.
Is this a position that you would eventually see being turned into a regular classified position?
For the work that Epic's doing in this ICC, no. This is going to be this marketing work will be a one-time. They were not a big enough organization to have a marketing position.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's just more clarification that dollars that come to us from the county, workforce development dollars that fund your workforce one-stop
Correct.
at the college. And so these aren't positions that are, right, we have no, they're not coming from us. We're a fiscal agent on the workforce development side. Action item 9.1, consider approval of contract to Tri-Valley Excavating, Inc. Oh.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen? Trustee Napolia-Bella Reese? Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes, you all knew what I was doing.
Yeah, we knew.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, 9.1. Consider approval of contract to Tri-Valley Excavating, Inc. for the construction of Building E, concrete pad, and Building F sidewalk at the College of Alameda in the amount of $75,921.62. You want me to read that again? Consider approval of the contract to Tri-Valley Excavating, Inc. for the construction of Building E, concrete pad, and Building F sidewalk at the College of Alameda in the amount of $75,921.62.
I'd like to move 9.1 and 9.2 together unless there's any objection. 9.2 is ratification of a contract with Mark Hahn Company for the installation of 2 exterior doors at Merritt College Child Care Center for $5,964.
Right. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Discussion. We'll start with 9.1. Is there any discussion? 9.2? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen? Trustee Napolia-Bella Reese? Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. 10.1, Board of Trustee reports. Trustee Brown.
I would just like to say that I will miss our VC of Finance. I think that she has added a lot and brought some important insights for us. And also, I will just really make it brief. I appreciate the benefit of being able to work with Trustee Jordan and ROC on advancing their legislative goals and presenting on issues that we've been working on as a joint caucus within the state of California, cultural competency and implicit bias at the APAHI conference this past week.
Thank you for that. Trustee Reese.
Also, a good luck to Romanier. It's been a pleasure working with you as well, and I'm sure you're going to be doing wonderful and spunky and fun things as you go forward. Yeah, that's right. 2 things. This weekend will be the State Academic Senate, and I will be attending that, and I think that's something that trustees and other administrators should attend if you ever have the time to do so, because it's important to do that. And secondly, there is also an ACC-JC Partners in Excellence Conference that is happening on the 30th of April, May 1st and May 2nd, and that should also be something that maybe faculty, administrators, classified staff, as well as trustees should think about going to too as well.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen. Trustee Withrow.
I'd just like to segue from other comments that I'm very sorry to see our Vice Chancellor for Finance leave. Romanier has done what I consider to be an outstanding job and been a substantial contributor to just an awful lot of things that were positive for the Peralta colleges since she's been here. And wish her the very best in her future endeavors.
Trustee Handy?
I too will miss Romanier's honesty and frankness. Numbers don't lie, facts are facts, and that's how she rolls, and I really appreciate that. And there are people who are distressed up and down the state that this bit of oasis at Peralta is now gone and not knowing what's going to happen and how we're going to move forward. But I wish you the best of luck no matter what you do. I know you'll land on your feet. It's been a very, very busy month. Actually, a few weeks since we were here last, but having the opportunity to sit on panels with students, I think we talked about this before, where Montel brought together a domestic violence panel, and the faculty members and president were all very open and supportive with students. And the point of this is to help people to understand that they're no different than anyone else. They put their pants legs on one at a time, and that there are challenges, but we also want to make sure that there's support for it and let them also see what it looks like for someone to have survived adversity. So I really appreciate the number of workshops that Montel put on at Merritt College in this past year. He's going to be moving on pretty soon too, but as I see Montel is moving on, I just saw our other student trustee, David Ivan Cruz, and he's going to be graduating from Davis this year. You know, our student trustees, they come in, they move on, and you see them, and it's like, oh, my babies. You know, it's just so amazing to see what they're doing. And another student trustee, Adrian Abuyan, landed with AEG and is now bringing information about $10,000 scholarships to make sure that all of our students know about those things. So it's forever turning over, but I really appreciate it. I also had an opportunity to go out to Black elected officials meeting, which is being revamped. So now we're moving not only Oakland, but we're also working with Richmond. And this particular meeting was in Richmond. And Carl Anthony, one of the professors on environmental justice, was actually one of our speakers there. But people were talking about the impact of the environment on our students, on ourselves, and our health. And it was an incredible meeting. And so to see elected officials coming in from as far as Susan, how do you say that? Susan City and the Richmond group. And then I drove there through all that traffic because I wasn't quite sure where I was going, and Bart was right outside the door. So, you know, trying to be somewhere at 6 o'clock in Richmond from Oakland is a little difficult. And so that was an incredible opportunity to meet electeds from the Contra Costa and further area, and also just to share ideas. And then some of them are so young, and it is so exciting because a lot of us are older, and we're ready to go if people are ready to step up to the plate and take these offices. So that was an incredible opportunity. I also had the opportunity to spend 2 days at Apahi. And for me, Apahi is very, very special because the people who helped to create it were people that started out as students here and other places, and watching that organization grow from 50 to over 500. And the thing that I've really noticed the difference this time in the last couple of years are the amount of students that are coming from Samoa, Samoan students from LA, but people flying in from very, very far away places and islands and things, because for them, it's the same type of feeling that I guess we get when we go to the Congressional Black Caucus. Everyone is welcome at the table, but there is nothing like being a young person sitting up and seeing a role model who looks like you, identifies as you identify, and also shares your story of immigrant parents and the challenges that were there. And for me, it's a time when I also do my creative piece. But I have students hanging out at my booth all day, and that is really amazing because we get to I'm just kind of talk just straight with them. But to meet students from LA and Evergreen and all of that, and just to spend some time with them. So I am so proud of all of the people and all of our presidents who are presenters and our trustees who are presenters. It is just an amazing event, and the people that you brought to it. It only gets better. But next year, it's moving on the road. So next year, it's going to be in Riverside. So for those who have not had an opportunity, or if we could create opportunities to send students there, let's just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Weinstein.
Thank VC Johnson and wish you the best. I want to thank you for the work that you've done to help us with the budget. And as you've always said, the budget is a reflection of values. And those values are things that we do. And it's up to us as trustees and representatives to make sure those values are shown. I want to thank you for helping me at times and for showing your humanity. And also, it's a loss to lose you, but I certainly think wherever you go, you'll do very, very well. So I wish you good luck. And I just want to say that myself and I'm sure all board members are absolutely listening to students and are concerned about the facilities, and we are working on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I too want to wish VC Johnson just the best. It is going to be very sad to lose you. And so I just appreciate you, appreciate the work. Thank you so much. This past couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to go to a couple of conferences. One was NALEO, which is the National Association for Latino and Elected and Appointed Officials. It was a Policy Institute on Workforce Development. Fascinating conference. My colleague, Trustee Handy, had encouraged me from early on, if you're going to go to a conference, go to the NALEO conference. They don't play, right?
NALEO knows how to get it all done.
And they don't start their conference till 9 o'clock in the morning. I always think about you.
They get it all done.
Yes, they do.
They get it all done.
Yes, they do. So that Workforce Institute was amazing. It was really about the future of work, the future of education, and how it just all ties in from a national perspective. And then they brought it back down home for us, and we had a hands-on experience with a Fab Lab. I know exactly how we should be building out our Fab Labs. I think it was Cal State Dominguez has a mobile Fab Lab. So I'll be talking more about that with the college presidents and with the chancellor. So amazing, amazing information. And then locally, I attended Oakland Chamber of Commerce had their Economic Institute, and that was absolutely fascinating. It was about the future of work, the future of food, the future of our work environments, and so the future of food was really interesting. And I think I've asked some of you before, how many of you have had the Impossible Burger? I remember it was President Karras, the Impossible Burger. So the Impossible Burger is a plant-based burger that tastes like meat. It tastes like a burger, but there's nothing meaty about it. I'm not sure there's anything super healthy about it, but there's nothing meaty. There's no beef. There's no beef in this. Well, that manufacturing plant is based here in Oakland, and they produce, their model was to produce, our business plan was to produce 1 million pounds of the Impossible Burger. Well, they're up to 3 million pounds a month of this, and Burger King, of all places, has now put the Impossible Burger on their menu. Very interesting. And so this is advanced manufacturing. This is advanced manufacturing happening right here in our backyard. So just an FYI, as we're thinking about career technical education, as we're thinking about advanced manufacturing for our students, we really have to pay close attention to what's happening on the ground locally to us. So just fun facts that I thought I'd share with you. We will now move to announcements.
The next regular board meeting will be held on April 23rd at the district office. The board extends its sympathy and condolences to the friends and family on the passing of Father J. Matthews. We adjourn the board meeting in his memory and take a moment of silence in his honor. Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay.